a little bit harder to reach lately, so.
Okay.
I'm sorry? Yeah, I don't know about his personal issues. I just know that his collection, he thinks is for his children who don't want it, so.
So, real public service announcement, I guess. When they rebooted the computer, the drivers, I guess, broke, so there's no sound going out to the public. Nick's going to notify everybody and say, technical difficulties, no sound. Ryan, our AV tech, is going to try to record this so we can post it at a later date or tomorrow with sound. But he's going to keep working on it. It's just one of those things. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Anything else on abatement that you talk about? Just want to advise us of one case, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Is this something that the code officer initially saw or a neighbor complained about?
I think it originally came in, it's been going on many years. So I think it originally came in as a complaint, and then we've been working ever since trying to remedy.
Well, the only concern I have when you say it's been going on for a number of years, do we feel that we have a solid process in place to get this moving along one way or the other now?
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to be sitting here 2 years from now and saying, well, we still haven't made any progress here.
That's why I'm coming before you, to let you know that we are going to follow the statutorily laid out process for abatement.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's the
we
process we're
should
going to follow.
we should be making progress on this.
We will be making progress on this,
Okay.
Mayor, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions or concerns on code enforcement case?
Thanks, Paula.
Yes.
Thank you, Paula. Appreciate it. Comprehensive plan. Who's doing that? Are you doing Paula
Me
as well?
too.
Okay.
Yes.
I figured you might be, but it doesn't say here. So.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you. So you know that in the fall, you all approved a final comprehensive plan. That comprehensive plan laid out value statements and goals. Where it stopped was the development of strategies. How are we going to accomplish those goals that were set out? And so that's the next step in this whole comprehensive. How do we implement it, and how do we successfully implement it? So what we did was, of course, you remember that we identified 6 strategic areas. They each have a varying number of goals. And now we want to get to the point where we develop strategies so we can see how we're making progress. This is a comprehensive plan is evaluated every year against what progress we're making, and we want to make sure we're making progress, and so that therefore we need to probably develop some strategies to be successful. In the staff report, what I did initially, and these are not approved or confirmed, but from each of our goal areas, or each of our value statement areas, I created a strategy statement and let you know that we're making progress. So there's some things that the city has already been doing because we know we need to do it. So just for example, Parks and Recreation, there was a goal that says assess additional funding revenue sources for parks and recreation system improvements and maintenance. The strategy was identify and obtain funding to improve park equipment in high priority parks. The progress is we received funding for new playground equipment and safety surface in Eagle Lake Park. So there's one thing that we've done to advance that goal. Again, I want to caveat, I'm the one that wrote these strategic strategies. Nobody approved them, but it's an example. And so I tried to do that with each one because we have made some progress. But the idea is to create a system or a process that gets us building strategies around all the goals that we have. What I'm proposing is that we develop and create an internal development team, which is department heads and staff, and review goals and identify some draft strategies so somebody has something to respond to, and then review and present it to an advisory body. So what I'm calling the Technical Advisory Committee would we like to consist of the city manager, myself, the finance director, a designated city council member, and a designated planning commission member who can review and assist in shaping those strategies and confirming them and finalizing them. And then once they are at a place where we feel like we can present them, then I'm advocating that we take 2 value statement areas and strategies and bring them back to a workshop that involves city council and planning commission to really delve in, provide some more guidance, finalize all the strategies. And then once once they're finalized, then we can review and develop a comprehensive plan amendment to include those strategies in our comprehensive plan, and then move forward with developing those strategies or implementing those strategies in a timeline. So really the reason why we're here is just to try to make progress on the strategic plan so that we can be successful, and then we'll just continue to work through those internal team and the advisory team to finalize those for your final approval after we create them. I didn't want the comprehensive plan to not be successful, so that's the progress. But that's why we're here, is just to get some feel about the process that we're hoping to follow and see
Well,
if we
I
can
don't
have
know if anybody else
participants.
has anything to say about it. I'm a little concerned, okay?
Okay,
That sounds like a lot of layers of things to do. And I much more would rather see us lay out specific, this is what we want to do in 2026, and this is what we want to do in 2027, and be more specific about it instead of having multiple committees thinking whatever. I mean, these are always changeable, they're always flexible, but, you know, I think back about like what we did with the road plan. We laid out a 5-year plan on what to do about the roads, and we said this is what we want to do each year. Now, it, again, is changeable and it's flexible because, you know, you can't predict what's going to actually happen with a road, and so something could change on us, and we might need to change the plan. But I guess I'm kind of more in favor of seeing it lined out like that than to say, well, we're going to have a committee that does this and committee does that, and then we don't know what we're going to accomplish next year. So I just my thought.
yeah, so I guess I'm kind of advocating for the sense of we have to write the strategies, the plan, because we don't have it. We just have a goal, but we have no idea how we're going to accomplish it. So I was trying to develop a system that could potentially give some buy-in and help us stay focused so that we know when we're making progress. And of course, it would have to have a timeline. We can't accomplish everything in 1 year.
No.
I mean, obviously, this is a 10-year comprehensive plan. So, but I'll take the lead on however you want strategies to be developed, however you want them presented back for final approval, because if we implement strategies to accomplish all these goals, then it will require an amendment approval by you all on the comprehensive plan. So we didn't want to get to a point where you see it for the first time and say, Paula, what were you guys thinking? This isn't what we had in mind. So we were just trying to create a process, but however you want that to work, that's why we're here.
Yeah, so I'll take the flip side of what you said, Mayor. I kind of disagree with your statement, because I think when you're planning long-term, which is what a comp plan is, you have to set up strategy to have any starting point. And yes, you could put, dates on it for a goal, but at the end of the day, it's this governing body's decision to set priority. So you got to come up with a goal or a strategy for each of these buckets, otherwise you're never going to make headway on all the buckets, right? But it is our job as a governing body to set the priority to that. And this governing body changes every couple of years, as we know, right? And so with that much change, you can never make progress if you don't set clear strategy with the comp plan. And I've said this a couple times. We've got other plans. We've got the bike ped plan. That thing's sat since 2019 and nothing really happened. And then when we started talking about it, citizens screamed saying, we don't know about this. We've never heard about it. Well, guess why? It's because it got left.
Yeah.
And so I really
understand.
think that the process that's being presented makes a lot of sense to me. We're a growing community. I think we need more people involved. This governing body will always have the decision to decide what priorities are. And yes, I agree, roads are probably going to be a top priority, but we've heard from other people that they want us thinking about parks and they want us thinking about other things. That's always up for our discussion on what's priority and what funding it gets. But I think it's healthy to take the comp plan and take a step. I don't think you need to spend a ton of time, because I agree that's going to change, but I think you have to have at least 1 or 2 priorities in each bucket that we can sit up here and discuss and say, okay, this year transportation, next 2 years probably transportation because we've got this big project. But, parks is probably right behind it, or maybe it's flips next year because of something, maybe some grants come or some funding comes through. So I would say that I think that the strategy of just looking at 1 or 2 things is past us. I think we've grown enough. I think we've spent a ton of time and effort to put a comp plan together. And I think to do it justice, we ought to actually follow through with coming up with goals and getting more people involved. And I think this is a good start, but I think like any plan, things are going to change and things are going to adjust. But I guess I don't like us pulling back. It seems to me like what that would accomplish is this going on a shelf and it collecting dust. And I don't want that to happen. I think our comp plan we ought to be trying to implement it, trying to actively pursue goals, and then choosing up here which goals are priority at the time. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think you just said what I said in a different way. Okay?
Maybe.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Maybe, but
Yeah.
I said it my way, I guess.
Yeah, I get
Yep.
it. No worries about that.
And part of this too, Emily, just before you start, part of this was because of something you had said last fall after we approved it. What's the next step? How do we develop that? And I said, yeah, we need to probably bring a process back, and so I appreciated that suggestion.
Yeah, I like the idea, and what are you envisioning, or maybe in your experience elsewhere, is this something that we could tackle like in a special workshop or a special retreat type setting? Or do you feel like this is something they each kind of need their own bucket and we need to do a couple at a time? Like timeline wise, how do you see this being most efficiently done?
I think from an efficiency perspective, it's easier I think it's more helpful if we bring back something for you to respond to. So I think that there's enough professional staff that attach themselves to these various buckets and these goal statements that can probably start thinking about what are some strategies that we're seeing. Either we've heard it from you, we see it's coming on the horizon. So us to develop those strategies and then bring them back for some sort of vetting. And we can do that through another layer, which is a representative from Planning Commission and a representative from the council, and us just working through that, and then bringing back those two goal areas at a time to a council workshop, just to get the feel and make sure that we're on the right path, and then establish them. Because once the strategies are in, I think the timeline can change depending on where the priorities are, the special funding that may come in, et cetera. So I see the timeline being a little bit more fluid than maybe necessarily the strategies, unless something major happens and we need to make a change or a pivot somewhere along the line.
And then another question I had was, Councilmember Dean has brought this up several times about like having a dedicated Parks and Rec board or something like that. Do you see that as being valuable or?
That is actually an approved goal.
Yeah.
It's in the strategic plan right now. So for that goal perspective, we would just develop a couple of strategies to either push it forward, make it so. That's the difference. So when you think about the goal, it's already there. We just need to know how are we going to get it done.
So this is something you implement, before you can even implement that, you need to even figure out what your steps are going to be to get there. Okay.
Correct.
Emily, I think that's a good point. One thing in the back of my mind is taking a hard look at what we currently do that is already sort of overlaps some of what the goals are saying, and is there a better way to do it? Like, we already have some citizens serving on different boards. Is there a different way we can structure how we engage our community to make it more effective, to make it more focused, to make it more helpful for not just the comp plan going forward, but maybe planning commission, maybe, obviously advisory capacity, obviously planning commission, council. So I would be excited to learn if there's some things internally that we could, figure out a best practice, a best way to do it that could help us meet the goals, but also help us improve internally. So.
And I put a summary sheet of where we are right now with the comp plan, which is the value statement and the goals under each one, if that's helpful. But then what happens with each goal has a strategy or maybe two strategies to implement it, and that's where we're moving towards. So that it is an active document that you all approved.
So I guess I think Emily asked the question. I didn't quite hear the answer.
No worries.
Do you envision this as one or two meetings of a group of people? Or is this recurring for a year meetings of a group of people?
I don't think it's going to be a reoccurring year. I'm proposing 3 workshop conversations about some of the strategies that we have around the goals. Staff will be working diligently to kind of create some strategies for you to respond to. Now, it's a matter of, do we have the next layer of one city council member and one planning commissioner kind of reviewing it and putting their lens on it before it becomes final at a workshop. So we're hoping that we can at least develop the draft strategies to react to, and then if we don't have that next layer, if there's not will to do the next layer, then we would bring it back to probably 3 workshops is what our intent would be.
Thank you.
You're
Then I
welcome.
think this is a great idea.
That kind of spun a question that came of your question. What do you envision so once that's done, once we get through the top strategies for each bucket, what does the process look like after that to refine the goals or strategies? How does that work? Would it be initiated from the bench? Is that, I guess what I'm saying is this is going to be, you mentioned ongoing meetings. I think every couple of years, we're probably going to do a little bit of a review of it so that it doesn't take 10 years
Right.
to just dust it off and rebuild it. It'll be more of an active conversation.
It'll be
Going
reviewed
forward.
yearly, for sure, because that's required for us to do that. And so we want to bring that back to you. We want to talk about where we are, and we also want to talk about maybe what didn't get accomplished and maybe reasons why, or bring back to you, hey, there's this funding available, we might want to reprioritize this if we're interested in it. Where I see this going is, once the strategies are developed, we're going to have to divide it responsibly among the years. There's just no way that we can do it all. So we'll probably look for insight from you all to set those kinds of priorities on which goals we work on. But we definitely want to make progress every year. And every year when we do an update, we want to make sure we're doing something. And it's not uncommon for things to change, right? It's not uncommon for different insight. But I'd like to keep the document before us because the document is used to evaluate almost every zoning case that I do. That's one of the areas of review related to any kind of zoning, that they're matching our land use vision, they're matching what we want to do and where we want to develop in the city, et cetera. So anytime we're making sure we're following the strategies and moving this plan forward is much better than us leaving it on a shelf and not doing anything.
Paul, so what I'm hearing is, like, right now we have an institutional process for our budget. We have an institutional process for our CAP. I see this being a annual report out by Paula or staff
Yeah.
on here's where we're at, here's what we accomplished, and then that's the feedback, and that's probably once a year.
It's
that's occurring,
required by
that report.
statute.
Right.
Yeah, so it's very driven.
I'm excited about that. I think that'll definitely help us move the plan forward, so thanks for answering that.
Sure.
Anybody else have any other input on comprehensive plan? Questions or concerns?
Any feedback about wanting to be involved in defining the strategy or having a planning commissioner or a city council member involved in doing that ahead of time? Or is there a preference to bring it back to workshops? I want to make sure I'm respecting the process that you'd like to see happen.
How do you feel about, I mean, I know I don't want to add one more meeting to my plate, but, it'd be nice to be a part of the process. Do you feel like it's something like a technical advisory committee of staff could come up with some ideas and then get some written feedback from us and then maybe present that at a workshop?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. I would agree with that. I think I'd like to preview draft of your strategies and give us a chance to give you feedback so that you're not way off before you.
Of course.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Paula, I guess the thing that comes to mind on having one city council member, kind of like putting the one council member's lens on it, is maybe really different than the overall sentiment. So I do like the, at least, maybe we can all shoot you an email back straight and see where that goes.
Sounds great.
Just as long as you don't copy everybody else on it, right?
We'll make sure.
I mean, I think I really do like that idea. And if you're seeing on your side as staff that there's a lot of different opinions, both planning commission and council, maybe we should have a en banc workshop to chat it out.
Sure.
Maybe it makes sense to do that, but we wouldn't have to do that step if you guys felt like you had some good feedback. So
Appreciate
I
that.
think that's a good observation, Mike.
And just to put a little bow on it, even with our old comp plan, we've done a lot to improve the city, and a lot of it's what Paula did with her staff report. Oh, we can write this in this in this bucket, but with our new comp plan coming on, we want to try something different to where we're actually engaging early and going, because of course we're going to have budget talks, we're going to have CIP talks, but it all should come back to this. I was looking at, how do we create identity, and, we're going to plan a 250th year celebration. That's one thing that we can put in that bucket, but is there other ideas that other people have that we want to attack? And that's not just financial effects of the city, but also, what we're doing as a staff. So that's kind of why you're seeing a little different process this time around, because we want to put the horse ahead of the cart instead of the reverse.
Okay, any other questions or concerns on comprehensive plan? All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. And next, we're going to talk about flock safety, and first is Chief Atterbury. And he'll tell us about flock and what he's got going there.
Good evening. Okay. Online, we have Lily Ho. She's a public affairs rep from Flock. So she's going to tag team with me or add what I've left out in my presentation. And she's also available for any questions after the fact. But I'll start with, throughout my career, we've had many tools that were controversial when they first came out. And those things are now used every day. One of the things was in-car computers. Now, today, indispensable. But in the past, there were privacy concerns. There were security of data concerns. And it was a hot topic. And then, later, I have a list of about 40, but I just picked a few. And then we had body cams. Very controversial. One group said we absolutely had to have them. They wanted us to have them on the whole shift. Of course, the batteries won't last that long, but with that, we had surveillance concerns because they're looking. They're always looking. They're always recording. At least some of them are, and that is a concern that we had also, because we don't want people watching us go to the restroom or go get our cup of coffee or have a private conversation with our friends, and that happens. So that was a concern. But another thing was that they were intrusive, and they would record not just suspects or people involved in cases, but they would be recording innocent people who've done nothing wrong, just happen to be in the area. Okay? But we use them today. Another one is related to that, and that's car cams. Car cameras, we have them in our vehicles today. There were security concerns, surveillance concerns, but they also record all the time, and they actively record when we hit the button or turn on the sirens, lights and sirens. But if I need to, I can go through a process and get the last 24 hours, and it'll show me everything that it passed. Okay? Once controversial, now in common use. Okay? So what are flock cameras? I'm sorry, can I see a show of hands if people know what they are? Okay? Okay, good, we've got a head start. So essentially they are just a camera on a pole. They capture a license plate and vehicle attributes only, no faces, no biometrics, no personal characteristics. The data is maintained for a short period of time, 30 days, and then erased. It's there to prevent long-term tracking. The data is kept with good guidelines from, like we use Lexipol. They've got a model policy that they worked with different organizations to write. The Police Executive Research Forum, the International Association of Chiefs of Police. It's good policy. To log on, there's multi-factor authentication. the goal is to help our citizens. One of the goals is to reduce crime. And with that, you heard me speak a little while back about our task force. Well, in Wichita, they've seen a decidedly, a very, very huge dip in property crimes because of that property crimes task force. And they've reached over $10 million of recovery, much of which it was only possible by use of the flock cameras that they have. So it's proven itself over and over again. Here with us, we just had a case last week. We had it's a long story, I'm going to make it very short. We had an infirm man, couldn't communicate, he'd had a stroke, in a wheelchair, family member died. To settle the estate, brother came and took him without the knowledge of his caretaker wife. She was terribly upset. They thought that maybe he went to El Dorado. El Dorado has flock cameras. So Lieutenant Fox called El Dorado. They ran the tag with our case number, and they were able to identify the car. We were able to find him at the Holiday Inn Express on the west side of town, and we got him back to his family. We've also used it with a serial burglar. Officer Trumbull, who is on the task force, he used his connections with Wichita. They used our case number, and he was able to identify a serial burglar who has, over the last 10 years, served time 2 times for a long period of time because of cases that he was caught here in Bel Aire on. This time he's looking at 14 years minimum for doing a burglary, stealing 2 vehicles, a Malibu and a Kia, and a Kia Soul. And with the use of flock, we were able to get those cars back to their owners here in Bel Aire. Okay, that's important for us. That's what we like to do. That's what we love to do. Another case, I won't go too many here, but another case involved a man who was, I'm going to grab my notes just to make sure that I got Officer Trumbull's explanation right. He was involved in a multi-state bank fraud with large government checks, and he was working in 8 different states, just going from state to state to state, and it's involved fraud. But we identified who the suspect was with the flock cameras. We called Oklahoma. They were able to identify him personally. When he came back to Wichita, Officer Trumbull had worked with Wichita PD. They had a hot listing for his tag so that when it came back into the area, everybody was looking for him. And they caught him at 13th and Oliver at the bank, and he was arrested. And now the U.S. Postal Service has taken over that whole case, but a nice federal case with the use of flock. So, I know that there are concerns about it being a mass surveillance tool. That's not the case. It doesn't create a continuous record of people's movements. It doesn't track daily habits. It doesn't track people to church. It doesn't track people to their medical appointments. It doesn't track people to their political meetings. I haven't seen where it has a chilling effect on free speech or anything like that. What I've seen, well, I'll move back. Bel Aire is about 6.8 square miles, and we're looking. We would like to have 5 cameras to place around the city in places where people are coming in, so that we can actually, once they enter our jurisdiction, we could take action. We're looking for criminals. We're looking for missing people. We're looking for stolen cars. But I would like to back up about the mass surveillance and just use another thing that I considered, and that would be that if the activist groups were correct and this is mass surveillance, my question is, why are they not advocating for the removal of all the cameras in our public schools and around our public schools? The public schools, they have cameras. They watch the parking lots, the playgrounds, the hallways, some offices, and they don't get just the license plate in the back of the car. They get the whole car when it comes in, when it parks. They follow the parents or the youth into the high schools or the grade schools. They get the political T-shirts, the religious bumper stickers and patterns on the shirts, sweatshirts, and so on. Much more intrusive than this is. But we don't hear the same shout and outcry over those cameras that we're having over these flock cameras or license plate readers. It's kind of baffling. Again, the flock cameras get the tag and the vehicle attributes, no political affiliations, no religious identifiers, only the plate and the vehicle attributes. We've looked at flock through a legal, ethical, and moral lens. And that's what we at the police department have done. We're looking at flock systems as a legal tool to use ethically for a good moral purpose. I have here a couple of references to the flock camera as a legal tool. One is a U.S. Supreme Court case, Katz versus United States. It's a 1967 case. It was the case that created the modern expectation of privacy test. But it also explicitly stated that, and this is the point of the case, that what a person knowingly exposes to the public, their car with a license plate on it, is not subject to Fourth Amendment protection. If it's out on the street and I can see it, I can run the tag, or I can have a camera run that tag. So that's the legal side, okay? The ethical side is it enhances public safety by enabling us to target crime, be accountable, non-discriminatory, just looking at vehicle identification as part of investigations. We get a vehicle description, we can go look for the car, or we see the car as it leaves an area and we get it on camera, we can get the tag number from that. It's very helpful for us. The data is retained for a short period, like I said, 30 days. Access is logged and auditable. The cameras record only plates and vehicle details, not faces. And we have policies that are crafted to use to alert officers to specific crimes and incidents, violent crime, thefts, missing people, Amber Alerts. But one thing I want to mention is we're not going to use it for immigration enforcement, okay? At one of the meetings, you mentioned a company called DFlock, so I went and looked at DFlock. And I found a lot of hyperbole, a lot of information. I looked up some of the court cases, and I'm not sure how what they concluded from those. But they magnified the negatives and minimized and dismissed the positives of the flock system. Their recent victories that they list on their website, most of those victories were cities across the country have either stopped or canceled a contract or not moved forward is because of immigration issues. The vast majority of them. Very few for other reasons. And I believe they were up to 53. I think that's right. But that's just a sidebar. And the next one, legal, ethical, and moral. The core view, I think, something we should all have is that we should do everything we legally can and use every legal tool available to us to protect our citizens from preventable harm or victimization. I think we should. License plate readers can locate missing children, endangered adults faster. We prove that. They can identify vehicles involved in violence, hit and runs, or abductions. They can help recover stolen cars. We've done that. Reduce distress and financial harm to our citizens, because if somebody gets a car stolen and they don't have a way to replace it, That's harmful to our citizens. The flock cameras can be a tool used to protect vulnerable people, improve public safety, and provide transparent accountability while collecting only limited information from a public area. So, some of you heard my previous presentation in 2023. Thank you, Mr. Proctor, for bringing this up so we could discuss it again. But if you have any questions for me, do you want them now or after?
If anybody has some questions, they can certainly ask them.
I didn't catch what you said. You said I brought something up. Did you say a deflock
Mentioned deflock.
at a meeting?
Yeah,
I don't recall that.
I
Okay.
do.
In 2023, apparently?
I think it was more recent.
Okay, I haven't, okay,
Yeah.
I haven't talked flock since then, okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Great. Mr. Davis.
Chief. So all the efficiencies that you get from Flock, you haven't said anything about the cost. And would it save us a police officer down the road?
Each year it would cost, with the cameras that we would request, $15,000. So that would be $15,000 for 5 cameras. It would be eyes that we don't have to have a police officer standing there with a notepad. So, and how much is a police officer a year?
More than 50.
Yeah, more than 50. So, 15,000 a year. 15. Sinuses.
Mr. Mayor, Chief.
McIntosh.
These cameras, they collect, like you said, limited data, license plate and vehicle characteristics.
And location, direction of travel, time and date of the photo.
Okay, and
Very, very narrow scope, only in the lane of traffic that they're traveling in and not the other direction.
awesome, okay.
Yeah.
And then I was reading in our packet, they store this data in a searchable database, which is what makes this whole thing so powerful and useful. How are the characteristics defined? Where is this edge computing on the camera itself, and then only the data is transmitted to the database, or are the pictures transmitted to the cloud? and
That's
you have
going to be a
cloud computing?
Lily question.
Okay.
Lily, are you able to answer that one?
Hi, Chief, I'm here. Hi, Mayor, hi, City Council members. My name is Lily Ho. I'm the Public Affairs Manager for the Western region of the U.S. for Flock Safety. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you guys tonight. Perhaps some of your questions may be answered in a very, very brief presentation I have about the Flock technology. Would it be all right if I gave this 5-minute presentation?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Please let me know if my screen sharing works. Oh, I have to request screen sharing. Or someone needs to give me permission to share my screen.
Done.
I think it was
Terrific.
granted. Have you got it through?
Yes, thank you. All right. So Flock Safety, we are a company that started in 2017. Our founder and CEO, Garrett Langley, saw an uptick of crime in his neighborhood. And he gave some doorbell footage to his local police officers, and they told him it wasn't useful, it wasn't helpful. So he is an engineer by trade and background. He looked into license plate technologies, which is what the police officers had told him, asked him to do. And he found that this technology has been around since the 70s, but the software and hardware was not cheap enough, available enough to be made at scale for to be useful. And so he tinkered around, and out came our automated license plate reader cameras. 70% of crime have a vehicle involved. And this is the reason why flock safety has been so impactful. It provides police officers an objective, actionable piece of evidence. So we first started selling to neighborhoods, including his HOA was the first customer. And then we noticed that law enforcement agencies were high in demand for this technology. As you guys may be familiar, police officers in Bel Aire are $50,000 a year. Recruitment, retention, as well as retirement are issues nationwide. And so we started selling to law enforcement agencies. We're now in over 6,000 communities in the United States. And what it is, it's a camera posted on a pole, typically a municipal pole, similar to Bel Aire, often in cities similar size at the ingress and egress locations of your city. And they're about 12 to 14 feet high, facing a public roadway, and also facing the rear of a vehicle. Our system imports lists from Amber Alerts and the FBI NCIC database. Additionally, custom hot lists can be created. So if a car is stolen in Bel Aire, Chief can enter in the license plate number of that vehicle that was stolen, and it would be collectively part of a database of cars that the flock systems are looking for. So if that stolen vehicle passes by another flock camera, whether it be in Bel Aire or Wichita, your law enforcement agencies would be notified right away, within seconds. What it captures are, again, the rear of a vehicle. So this would be a very typical of what you would see. You would see the make and model of the vehicle, the license plate number, and the state of the license plate. Another part of our technology, and this is special to us, is our vehicle fingerprint. So often case in a situation of a crime, the victim may not see the vehicle, would not catch the vehicle license plate number. You can put in a partial plate number or perhaps just the characteristics of a vehicle. You could type in a red truck with a toolbox in the back, for example, and that would be something that your chief would be able to search in the database. And this system is built with privacy in mind. We're end-to-end encrypted. Our data is stored on the AWS GovCloud servers. We're FBI CJIS certified, so any officer who is going into the system must be FBI CJIS certified. It's NDAA, SOC 2, and a bunch of other world-class cybersecurity protocols. We do not sell data. We are not in the business of selling data. Customers own 100% of the data. That is your information, and you choose who you share with. Chief, do you guys store at 30 days? Is that your retention period?
Well, we don't have it right now, but that's what I've decided.
Okay, terrific. 30 days is our retention period by default. You may have it less, you may have it more. That policy is set up to your community and built around your community values. This is the transparency portal. This is a public-facing website for your stakeholders. It includes the prohibited use cases and unprohibited use cases, and it shows who you would share with. This is a customizable website, and it can link to your department's policies, success stories, anything else for the community to have information. Also, I didn't mention, we do not use facial recognition technology. We do not capture pictures of individuals in the platforms. If there are individuals captured in the photo, it is incidental. The cameras face rear of vehicles. It's also not connected to any other database system, so the DMV. That is extra police work that your police officers will have to do to connect who may be driving the vehicle and who the vehicle is registered to. We have compliance to specific state laws. You would choose if you would like to be on the national lookup or statewide lookup. Our audit logs are permanent records, so your retention period is 30 days. So all of the data will be deleted on a 30-day rolling basis, but the audit logs are permanent. So that means anyone who searched, what the reason they searched for, and when they searched. Offense type dropdowns are required in the search as well, and our offense type dropdowns are lists pulled from the NEBRIS. So your police officers would have to create a reason for search. Perhaps it's arson, for example. Case numbers would also be required. Again, we don't share your data. You choose who you share your data with, and our data is never sold. If there is a federal, again, you may choose who you share with. That includes federal agencies, but that decision is made at the agency level according to your state and local policies and laws. This refers back to what the chief spoke to earlier. There is no right to privacy on a public roadway. License plates are a government-issued document meant for public display on public roadways. This is backed by over 60 case laws at this point. There are claims of surveillance. We are taking photos of the rear of a vehicle. There is no indication of where anyone would worship, what their habits are, what they shop, where they sleep, where they go to the gym, what schools they go to. We've, again, have had multiple case laws supporting this. And the cameras do not capture any PII. There's no personal identifiable information. It is just the photo of the rear of a vehicle. Your police officers have to do additional legwork to find out who the car may be registered to. We've got some terrific trusted partners. They include Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, where most hit and run cases have no evidence at all for anyone to follow. And the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they run NCMEC. We have found hundreds of children with our technology, and over 1,000 people. That includes silver alerts. We've been backed by the NAACP chapter of Oakland, and they find that the license plate reader technology, specifically Phlox, reduces bias in policing because we're giving police officers a specific vehicle to look for, and as such, it removes subjective judgment on who they may be looking for. And in Kansas, we've had quite a bit of success. We're in over 80 law enforcement agencies. That includes Wichita, Great Bend, Rose Hill, Derby. In this case, this was a shooting suspect that was arrested. This was in May of 24. Officers responded to reports of a shooting, and the victim was able to identify the vehicle, and officers reviewed video footage from nearby witnesses to obtain the description of the vehicle as well. And using our cameras, officers were able to respond and detect a matching vehicle in the area around the time of the crime. This was an alleged rapist that was caught. Officers located a vehicle, initiated a traffic stop, and arrested the driver after it was reported that the vehicle associated one for rape was detected entering town. Wichita shared with us their 30-day ROI with Phlox Safety. Their first camera was installed in November of 2020, and on their first day, they recovered 11 stolen vehicles. By the end of the month in 2022, they had made 49 arrests. By the end of the year, actually just within a month of installing their cameras, they reached nearly $500,000 in stolen vehicles. And by the end of the year, they had 53 stolen vehicles recovered and 32 stolen license plates.
And Lily, if you give me a moment, those
Sure.
cars, they're not from rich people. There are a lot of middle class, but there are a lot of underprivileged folks, not economically set, and to get that car back is massive. That gets them to work. That gets them to the grocery store. Go ahead.
I would agree. This was a kidnapping that was solved, and it was interjurisdictional. And this was in Wichita, and a father walked into a store, and he left his daughter in the car. And when he came out, the vehicle was gone with his daughter inside. And this was at 6:49 p.m. The man called Wichita PD to report his missing vehicle with his daughter inside. At 7:02, so about 13 minutes later, the officers used the flock cameras, uploaded the license plate into the flock hot list, and identified where the vehicle was. Again, our cameras take a photo of the car at a very specific time and place, and the officers are pinged within seconds where the vehicle is. By 8 p.m., the Oklahoma Highway Patrol spotted the suspect vehicle and initiated a traffic stop. They were able to detain the driver and found the girl safely inside. So in about an hour and 10 minutes, the father was able to not just get his car back, but his daughter back. Crimes and stories like this in the past, as you can imagine, and I'm sure Chief has many stories around this, there was no indication of which direction the vehicle would have gone, and we don't know how long something like this would have taken to return the child. This is another child endangerment. Actually, I think this is the same situation. Yeah. This was a double homicide in Wichita. Officers responded to a local parking garage from a 911 call from a city employee. A street sweeper had located two deceased individuals inside the vehicle. Officers queried the LPR surveillance, the cameras, and identified a suspect vehicle within that time frame, and they were able to identify and locate the individual responsible for the murder. He was charged with 2 counts of felony murder. This is a case that's very dear to the company. This was the first stranger-on-stranger abduction that was solved by flock cameras, and this was in 2020. An Amber Alert was issued, and within 6 hours, the baby was returned to his mother. And in these stranger-on-stranger abduction situations, every second counts, and there is, again, no indication of which direction and whom and where the child would be. So that's just the conclusion of my presentation. I'm happy to address any questions that Council and Mary may have.
Okay, Lily, if you could, when the photo is taken by the camera, what is the process that it moves from the camera, it's taken the photo, it runs it through NCIC and the other databases, which are what, about 15 different databases? And then does it go to the cloud at that point, or does it go to the cloud later?
When you would enter a license plate to create your own hot list, it goes to a cloud immediately. Simultaneously, the cameras are also bringing in data and lists from NCIC and Amber Alerts as well.
So the camera that is on the ground taking a photo of the car on the street is sending that information to the database and the cloud simultaneously?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Mr. McIntosh?
I believe so. Does the camera go to the cloud? Does the photo itself go to the cloud? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that, the photo, the analysis through all the databases, and then to the cloud and to the officers is within 10 to 15 seconds. It's massive. That is, it gives us actionable information almost real time. 10, 15 seconds, it's real time. and we're able to move in and try to apprehend, retrieve, work the case. That's an investigative lead that we otherwise would not have had.
Mayor and Chief, kind of curious about, do you know how many cameras are in the area or how many communities around the area are actually using these systems?
Well, in Sedgwick County, I think it's Andale, maybe Cheney, Keachai. No, I think they have car cams, and us.
Are not using them?
Right.
Okay, so most communities are actually using it. So if somebody lives in Bel Aire, what are the odds they're being, taking pictures of or having their license plate logged already? Just not in Bel Aire?
Oh, very high.
Very high?
If they
Okay.
go south on Oliver or Woodlawn or Rock Road, in the downtown area, very, very high.
From an
I
enforcement?
would check for you, but that would violate the policy.
Oh, good. So you're saying there's a policy?
Yes.
Okay, so it'd be hard for an employee to say use it for personal reasons?
I wouldn't say that. They can use it for personal reasons, but there are ramifications.
Okay,
For instance, the Keachai officer, when he did that, he was tracking his ex-wife, I think it was, and following her to see where she was going. And when he was found out, he faced termination. He had his certification pulled by the state, so he can no longer be a police officer in Kansas. But that also goes into a national database, so he cooked that. And then he was actually charged and convicted of using telecommunications device to track his ex-wife.
okay.
So there
And
were,
council member, I'd like to add that this is, again, our audit logs are permanent records, and this is how this case was found. I'm also proud to announce that as of today, we just rolled out an anomaly detection tool. So in that situation, his tracking of his ex-wife was found through audit logs. Now, if there are, say, 50 searches by the same officer, your chief would be notified as a flag and other anomalies.
And I guess maybe one other question I had, because I did get a couple of emails, people, not happy with the idea of the system. But do you think that our crime rates are potentially generally higher, generally lower with or without a system?
well, annually, Bel Aire is one of the safest cities in Kansas.
Okay.
But that is changing with the increase in population, the population density that we're experiencing now versus 5 years ago. We're seeing different and more crimes. That and not group homes, but some foster care homes that have difficult kids. We've had, one of the auto thefts we had over near Webb Road, we got that car back with Flock, with Wichita's help, okay, and got him arrested and got him moved out of Bel Aire. We had 4 kids at another home who went into, we didn't use Flock for this one, but they went into Wichita and did a burglary at one of the smoke shops nearby. We're seeing an uptick in things like that, is my point, where we didn't see it 10 years ago, 5 years ago. We're seeing more things like that. So I don't know if we're going to be on the safest city list this year. I don't know. We'll see when it comes out.
And then maybe one other question for you is how much do you think it might improve response time effectiveness?
I can tell you that our officers are eager to use the tool. They want to catch bad guys. They want to get the guy in the wheelchair back to his house. They want to do those things. And with another tool, they can just do it better. They can do it faster.
Thank you.
Any other, Mr. David?
One follow-up back on the data storage. How does the 30-day in seconds all the data is transmitted to the national databases, and that's the joy of how it works.
It's just checked on the national databases.
So where's the 30 days come in? You don't pull that data back off the national
No,
database in 30
it
days.
automatically purges. Okay, once I've got 30 days, then we move into day 31. The first day is dropped out and erased
On our server or on all the servers?
on the cloud server that we would have access to. So we no longer have access to it.
But the national database still does.
No. All they have is an audit log that it was checked.
Somehow.
And then they've got audit logs of everything I do.
Somehow the Keachai officer was found out through these audit logs. So, but that's not the full data, you're saying it's just a condensed.
Who checked it for what?
It's like a spreadsheet that lists the search reason, the officer that searched for the reason, the case number associated with it, and time of the search. So it's a spreadsheet of when someone accessed their system. That's what the audit log information holds,
And there
not
was
the
a-
actual images.
And there was a contemporaneous complaint from his ex that she thought he was following, because she kept seeing him in places she was, and so she thought he was using that tool. So it was within that 30 days, and they were able to get that audit log and see that he was doing it wrong.
Chief, over here.
Sorry, my fingers.
First of all, I just want to say, like I said 3 years ago, I don't necessarily think this is a slam dunk. There's nobody up here that wants to see anybody's property not returned or taken in the first place. Your loved one drives off into the sunset with dementia, you want them back ASAP. You don't want your kid abducted, you don't want your car stolen, and if it does happen, you want it back as soon as possible. So I'm not questioning any of that. I'm sorry, I have to return. I have not talked about flock cameras since 2023 during a
It's been
meeting.
then.
Yeah, okay, I don't think I even knew about deflock me back then. So, one of the questions I have, and you sort of answered it with, things were going on at the same time with the audit logs and the X in Keachai. One of my concerns are guardrails. So in Sedgwick, we have the police chief searched 200 times.
Yeah.
Whatever guardrail was there, didn't stop it. And my understanding is the ex-girlfriend and the new boyfriend were the ones who picked up something was up because of where he was showing up and what he knew. So you say they can't track you, but people are using it to track their exes, are they not?
Well, they're looking for maybe a common place where they go with some regularity. Sedgwick, you're going to cross the same street where that camera is probably multiple times a week. It's a very small place. In addition to that, I believe there was information that he was running things on his computer database, not on just Flock. So that was also part of the record that was checked during the investigation to show that he was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing.
So is it, because I know that,
And I am so happy that Lily talked about the rollout of the anomaly. I mean, that is
that'll
awesome.
pick up on
That-
200, yeah.
Okay, I can audit all day long, but am I going to find something like that with 15 people or 700 people in Wichita? That is an awesome tool.
So in terms of tracking somebody's movement or what they're up to, it's not one camera that would allow you to do that. It's sort of triangulation of, well, if they hit this checkpoint at 96 and Oliver, and then they hit this checkpoint at Greenwich Plaza, you could put those things together and kind of know, obviously, roughly the path they've been traveling.
Well, what it's used for, and it's used almost every day in Wichita, is the stolen car is at Pawnee and Broadway. Then it's at Hydraulic and Pawnee, and then it's at 135. So officers are going to Pawnee and Hillside to see if they can see the car coming by, and then they take action. So in that respect, that's what it's used for. Because generally speaking, we don't care about all those other cars that are passing by. We're interested in criminals, missing people, terrorists, gang members. But it can be used that way. But to track somebody like they were doing in Sedgwick or Keachai, that's a serious policy violation.
So a question I had was, here in Kansas, you're required, and this is probably a Lily question, here in Kansas, you're required to have my understanding is a private investigator's license to conduct private investigation or to provide evidence in court. Does Flock maintain a license like that?
We are FBI CJIS, so the officers would be required to be Epic, but all police officers in the country are.
They go through, I'm sorry, Lily,
Yeah, go ahead.
Flock has been through a certification process with the FBI, and they've got to meet CJIS requirements, that's Criminal Justice Information Systems guidelines, to access the system and to allow other people to access the system. So I've got to take security awareness training for Criminal Justice Information System information frequently, every year or two. And they have to make sure that the people who are accessing are compliant. But as far as private investigator license for the company, no, they're much higher than that with FBI authorization.
My understanding is that this Flock systems are popular with HOAs and construction sites and schools. One of my rules of thumb is if the private sector can do something, maybe the municipality or the government can stay out of it. How does it work? I'm not aware of what, if any, businesses or schools or anything here, HOAs in Bel Aire have Flocks cameras, but how do you work with private organizations or businesses or construction sites that have Flock systems, or maybe for Lily, how does that work as a private entity using your system?
Yeah, our private customers are interested in sharing that data with law enforcement. They don't have the ability to take action, but they share that information so that law enforcement agencies can take action.
So they don't have access to like a hot list or anything like that. They would just.
No.
How does that work with? Are they own the data and they can share it with police officers if they think it's useful to an issue they're having?
Correct. It is one-way sharing. Private customers share with law enforcement agencies. It does not go the other way around.
Mr. Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to mention, when in the 3 years I was on City Council in Goddard, the only discussions, and it wasn't named, like they weren't saying, oh, our Flock system. They're saying our cameras, our plate readers, which is Flock. The only comments were how many bad guys they were catching that came through town on Kellogg, or alerting the proper jurisdiction, or maybe picking them up for an assist. But I never heard one negative thing about the cameras from any law-abiding citizen. It was never brought up. No, like it wasn't a problem for them. It was a problem for people that were trying to, that were wanted for law enforcement purposes. And the other thing is, we're going to be touching 254 here before too long, and that's going to continue to expose more traffic coming through town, or even like all the traffic we've got on Webb and Greenwich and Rock. It's really quite a bit, but but I was just saying, for 3 years, the only comments I ever heard were from Chief on reporting how many bad guys they were picking up because they were able to catch them.
Because of Goddard's, the city's cameras,
Yep,
right?
Yeah, and I am eager to put that stuff on that transparency site. Some of the stories that Lily spoke of, I want to write those up and put them on that site so people can be happy that we're catching bad guys. Mayor, I see that Gary's here.
Yeah, I see him too. I was just wanting you to get wrapped up.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, we had somebody come on, a resident approached about having somebody who kind of has a national view of this and concerns about them.
Yes.
On video. Is now an appropriate time to maybe hear the flip side and think about questions?
Mr. Mayor, I was actually waiting. I
Sorry.
wanted to ask Chief a few questions, but then I agree. We probably should move on to get some different perspective. So Chief, I'm glad you brought up, you had a couple examples of some things that you were able to solve. Doesn't sound like it's because we don't have Flock, you use Wichita or other resources, but I was curious, you mentioned the other technologies that you already use, the things that officers are already equipped with, the tools in the body cam, the car. Can you give us an idea of what it would look like with Flock not there, you're every day right now, what an officer is doing, how are they plate reading? Like,
Okay.
what does that process look like today?
Well, it doesn't work because we don't have the system. But I'll give you an example. We had a drive-by at the apartments, and where we knew the car had come probably north on Rock Road, but we don't have a camera there. So we got a basic search or a description of the car, some identifiers from the car. We don't have the plate, but we've got the make, model, color, and it was late in the evening. So Officer Trumbull worked with Wichita and was able to get some assistance and able to identify the car, which led us to the suspects. That took about 3 days worth of work. About 24 hours of searching before he was able to find that car by reaching out. So I've got the great example for you. He tried to do it on his own, then he used the camera system in Wichita and was able to gather that information so we could move forward.
But just to clarify, currently on your police squad cars, there is no plate reading automatic camera that's assisting you, Or is there?
not. The camera is capable of doing it.
but it isn't currently activated like the Flock
Correct.
system. So it is all manual. A police officer would have to identify, type in the description, or see the plate, catch the plate in time, type it in. Or if they're following a vehicle, this would be something they would generally do, right?
Every day.
So that is something they're manually doing now. They're plate reading, or they're identifying vehicles to their best of their human ability. And then, so I know last time we discussed it, there was a lot of talk about kind of other places that are using it, and it's been a couple years, so there's been a lot more, I assume, that have added this to their city, and then some have decided to not do it, and others have done it, and there's cases where folks have decided to cancel their Flock system. You mentioned the biggest reason for that being the immigration just in the last year, but are there other, we have a few very local examples since we talked about this last time. The Sedgwick one, I think, is more recent than the Keachai one.
Well, there's one in Bonner Springs.
So, I
too.
mean, I guess where I'm going with that is, can you describe to us what other issues, non-Flock related, that, there's other issues that occur, the examples that have been brought up using Flock, in your experience in law enforcement for 30 years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of other issues that have occurred with personnel that do something that they're not supposed to do, that break the law doing something they're not supposed to do as a law enforcement officer. Just give us some background. I mean, the other tools you mentioned and just behavior.
I don't know if
Flock isn't necessarily, Flock is a tool.
It's
And so I
one of the
wanted your
tools.
background on other tools that have been used and.
Usually it's
Or misuse.
if you're talking about misconduct by officers, that's usually through a complaint. Somebody's telling us about something, we investigate and we take action. And if you'd like to, you can go to the Kansas C-Post, KSC Post, I think it's .org. And that's the certifying organization for law enforcement in the state of Kansas, and then look up the integrity bulletin. So all the decertifications and revocations are on there, and you can read those individual cases. It's not just for not following a policy. It's for crimes that happen, and when that happens, they lose their certification. And many times they get charged. To find out what's happening, well, oftentimes that's through just a citizen complaint, or we'll see it when we're doing an audit of car videos or something. If we see it, then we take action.
And you mentioned earlier, Bel Aire is consistently a top safe city, and I think that takes a lot of different things. It takes the citizens being engaged and involved in keeping an eye out, and it takes a good police department that's following the law and doing the right casework and, catching bad guys and prosecuting bad guys and hopefully doing some preventative work as well. And then it takes, staff backstopping. So, I mean, it takes a lot of things, but I'm proud that we are that community. And I guess one thing that is stirring around in my mind a little bit too is we're talking about 5 cameras in Bel Aire that don't exist now, right, potentially. And there's, I don't know how many in Wichita, probably hundreds would be my guess.
I think they're getting close to 200.
So, I mean, one
Maybe.
thing that's kind of rolling around in my brain is, are we trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist? Is there a potential that the system that's in place in Sedgwick County and Wichita is already protecting us to a pretty high level? Like has been mentioned earlier, if you're driving to Wichita, if you go to Park City, we drive by these every day. So something that's rolling around in my head a little bit is, is this really a needle mover? I mean, or do we already have the coverage that, is 5 additional cameras? I guess I would need to understand what kind of benefit, like significant benefit to crime reduction that you would see, or that there's cases that prove that you cut your percentage of whatever in half. But I would like to hear some of that to understand how big of an impact could 5 cameras have on a system that's built out to 200 cameras at this point. So I mean, that is something rolling in my head is, are we trying to solve a problem that we don't have?
Well, and I looked at Wichita's property. We're using Wichita a lot because they're
Biggest, yeah.
they're
They're
right
right
next
there.
door. They saw last year, I believe it was a 9% decrease in property crimes. And when I know I was a property crimes lieutenant in one part of my life, I would get 70 to 90 cases a day. And that's a lot of cases. So if you're reducing that by 9%, that's a significant number. We don't have that much here, but what we have, we want to solve. And the crimes that we do solve, we want that number to go up. And we're firmly in belief that with these additional tools, we can do that.
Gotcha.
Any other questions for Chief?
I was just that was on my list of questions too, is, like you said, the drive-by shooting where you get to a black hole point, but we'll always have black holes. And I did have a question about, I think you referred to it as a memorandum of understanding with Wichita. Is that what allows you to access their system now?
Yes, because our officers are part of a task force, and through that, they're able to use, through Wichita officers, the flock system.
And that's the property crimes
Property crimes
task force is what gave you access to that?
Right.
So you have
Well-
not had,
We don't have it otherwise.
okay. Because I know I asked you back in December just privately that there were these 5 things listed on our transparency portal, and I said, well, we don't have these, where did it come from?
That was me.
And that was you, yeah.
I was going, can I do it? I really need to do it.
Or-
No,
but-
we've got to call somebody else.
But because of the task force, you're saying it's got to be limited in scope to the goal of that task force, or are you allowed to search for other reasons?
If we get something today, even though we have officers on that task force, we call them and follow the rules. We give them a case number and the type of crime, and then the vehicle description, if we've got it. And we try to do it the right way with that partnership.
And that's going under Wichita's policies they've set forth of how they'll share their information.
Now, after, if we were to get the flock cameras, we could send them an invitation to look at ours, and then they would send us an invitation so we can look at theirs. So we would have that access back and forth.
And is that just kind of the professional courtesy it tends to be?
But that's the way flock is designed. It's to be that force multiplier to be successful.
So when, this will be my last question, I know we want to move on, but some people have talked about, like you talked about, the ICE situation. we have residents all across the political spectrum, so I'm not speaking specifically to what anybody thinks about that. But speaking of that issue, there's been the question, Flock, as I read it, denies that they share with federal agencies, but sort of, for a lack of a better term, a game of telephone, any agency could choose to share with any federal agency that they chose in their policy. Is that correct?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
Okay. Thought I had it here. I've got it somewhere in one of mine. Oh, there it is. So when you log in to Flock, your name, password, multi-factor identification, then you have a box and you have to check it. It says, I am accessing restricted information systems for authorized use only in compliance with Flock's privacy policy and CJIS security policy. I agree to use this system in accordance with laws of my jurisdiction and will not access data from somebody, long list of states, for immigration enforcement or from long list of states for reproductive care. I consent to be monitored, recorded, and audited by Flock and my agency. Unauthorized improper use may lead to disciplinary action and criminal or civil legal penalties. My agency is responsible for the security of my devices and the authorized use and privacy of any data. So
at the state level, some states have said you absolutely cannot access our system for that.
And with those cities, I thought of it when you were talking, those cities that have stopped using Flock, you can see where riots have happened. So there's been an uprising. It's not necessarily because it's a bad system. It's because the public was saying, they didn't like the enforcement actions of the federal government. And so you can just track where those riots were, and in those cities, they've stopped using Flock.
But here in the state of Kansas, we have nothing that prevents officers in this state from sharing that with ICE, correct?
Lily? Is there anything in Kansas that prevents an agency from sharing with Immigration and Customs Enforcement?
From what I know, there are no state laws in Kansas that prevent that.
Right.
That would be a decision made at the agency level.
And that would be in our policy? Because that's not, can I want to hop in?
Chief, I did have one follow-up on the concept of private cameras. So right now, just to kind of show where cameras are everywhere. I personally have several security cameras in my home, and I'm sure a lot of other people do. Several of them do face my front of my house, and obviously would detect people that were in public right away, essentially either on the sidewalk or in the street. If a crime were to have happened, say in my neighborhood or whatever next door, and a citizen wanted to share information, is that something that law enforcement follows up with the neighborhood and asks, did you see something? Do you have any camera footage? And then at that point, they could say, yes, I do, I'll share it, or no, I don't want to be involved. And that just kind of ends. Kind of walk us through how that works, because there's a lot of cameras out there, not necessarily license plate readers, but
you
cameras.
Pretty much described it. We have a crime occur, and then the officers, they drive down the street and look for people with cameras, go up and knock on the door. And then when we get in those conversations, we ask if they'll send it to us. Through our Axon camera system, we've got a app that we can give them access to send it to us, and it goes into that app, and then we pull it down from there. But that's exactly how it happens, and we use that all the time.
Gotcha.
It doesn't give us as good of information. Sometimes you only see the color of a car or a dented fender on a dark car at night. So it doesn't give us the good information, and it's far from giving us the tag number, which would identify who the suspects are.
Mr. Proctor?
Sorry, I had one other question.
Sure.
So
My legs are getting tired.
From what Mr. Dean, Councilmember Dean was asking about with plate readers in the cars. So with Lily, I mean, she's a good talker. She could probably talk into maybe including that with some cameras if we got cameras, right?
Well, Flock and Axon
Or is that totally different?
are not in a position where they're working well together.
Okay,
Would that be right?
they're competitors.
They tried to buy our company last year and Flock declined.
Well, it sounds like they like you at least. Anyways, so, no, I'd love to see that so we don't have officers having to type stuff in all the time while they're driving, but whatever. Guess that's beside this conversation.
So,
But I think to answer your question, I think what you were getting at is, our system is open, not the Flock ALPR system, but we do have a platform where you can integrate your camera systems, your whatever other systems are that exist, and the tools, all the tools in the toolbox for law enforcement agencies. We have a tool that's it is a platform that other companies also have, but we are not a closed network, so we may import Axon data into our platforms. But that's not what we're talking about today.
And I know, I keep lying too. I asked that 3 years ago about keying, and you indicated about, keying tag numbers. When they pull up behind somebody, their cameras aren't going to capture the tag in front of them, correct?
Right.
Yeah, and because your dash cams are from Axon, right?
Right.
Is that a capability that you could update?
Well, that is.
I know they're not playing well together, but.
Right. I think Lily just said because we were told at one point, no, but I think there's an integration, a way to maybe make that happen, but not right off the bat. We'd have to figure out how that worked if we were to do that. That would be a lovely tool.
But if we didn't do the flock cameras, is there
Oh,
a way that we could upgrade those dash cams so?
you would still have to contract with a company because there's a lot of back-end software that is required to run the cameras. It'd probably be through Axon.
But Axon could probably do that from what you're saying?
I don't know. I think maybe so.
I don't know where we're going to land on a consensus, but one thing I'll say here is if we got to a compromise, I could live with something like that where an officer is pointing their vehicle. It's no different than what they're doing. I'm not a Luddite. I'm not anti-technology. I think it was at a stoplight the other day and there was a Tesla on both sides and one behind me, and I never felt safer in traffic lately. So I just was going to mention that because it came up 3 years ago where you're not doing this constant clocking everybody who comes through, but that, like I said, that's kind of a separate conversation.
Okay.
okay. So what we got, a citizen would like to speak, and also we were requested to add a person here, Mr. Sean Dow, who has some background in this area. It was somebody that we were asked to put on here. I never met the gentleman. I see him on screen, I think, but anyway, it was just somebody was brought up that said, hey, we would like to have him. So if you're ready to speak, Mr. O'Neill, please come up, and for the record, please state your name and address.
Gary O'Neill. I live at 4967 North Hillcrest in Bel Aire. I've lived in Bel Aire since 1987. I've been involved with the city since about 1994, and I had opportunity 6 weeks ago to meet at a fairly exclusive meeting in Mays with the mayor, with the city manager, with one of the council members, with the chairman of the Mays Community Foundation, and with the police chief. And in this meeting, one of the discussions, in fact, I brought it up, the police chief was giving an update on the crime and things that were going on in the Mays area. Mays' current population is a little over 8,000, so it's smaller than Bel Aire is, although they built 250 houses last year and on that track to do that again this year. They love the flock cameras they have. Mays has flock cameras, and the chief loves them. All the members that were there with me loved them, and so I just wanted to come tonight and share with you that I met with these people, and I asked the question, do you have flock? They do. They love them, and they feel with the growth they're having and the density things they're having, like the chief mentioned with apartment buildings and duplexes and everything that's going up, they are seeing crime issues, and they're like Bel Aire. They're just basically direct west of us, but on the north side of Wichita. And as people come out of Wichita, we have the ability to catch them here with flock cameras once they leave the Wichita area. And I don't know what the county's got, but anyway, that's all I wanted to say. And I'm pulling double duty tonight. I've got to get to Arby's and finish up our Lions Club fundraiser tonight. So hopefully nobody has any questions.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Gary.
I just want to let you know that Mays likes them.
All right. Appreciate the information. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Sean Dow is on video call. So, Mr. Dow, would you like to tell us what you had to present?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, council members, I've been working with the state legislators across the country on ALPR technology for more than 20 years. I have just a few things that I can go through, and if I can share my screen here, I'll cover some things that weren't covered earlier, and then we can go ahead and move on. So let me pull these up here. First and foremost, let's take a look at an example that I pulled up that is similar to Bel Aire in size and in traffic counts past the cameras. Sevierville, Tennessee. Y'all both have roughly 12,000 to maybe a little bit more in your population. To the right here is the organizations that are granted access to Sevierville's residents and their license plate data. All of these government organizations have and do use Phlox cameras to do background checks on every vehicle that goes past that camera. The ALPR technology connects to NLETS, a National Law Enforcement Database System, which connects to all DMVs, all wants, warrants, amber alerts, silver alerts, all of these things. They have access to. It's quite a large list of federal and state and county and city organizations that have access. Most of the flock camera systems are set to this kind of section where they're sharing this data. In the last 30 days in Sevierville, a population of 12,000 residents, they've done 646,719 background checks on vehicles. They've had a hot list hit in the last 30 days of 35,830 hot lists. And the police department has done they've entered in 338 times to figure out who they were looking for. This is what you're going to be subjecting your residents to when you install any ALPR technology, and there are many companies. Let's take a look at NLETS, at what they have as far as the other ALPR companies who are also accessing motor vehicle records and background checks every single time a vehicle passes by their cameras. And Axon is one that is doing the same thing, and so you are capable of doing that. They all have this access through their alliance partners. This is the federal government. Most of it goes through this National Real-Time Crime Centers, all of which are part of Kansas's law enforcement databases. As you can see, it is extensive. I'll go ahead and stop sharing screen now and just come on camera with you and kind of talk about the risks of what we're seeing across the country. What we have seen is that cities and counties are hiring unlicensed private investigators to track and conduct surveillance in public and provide evidence for courts. This is illegal under Kansas state law, and just because the FBI gives some special certification does not trump Kansas state law. This is why Flock is being investigated and prosecuted under states like Texas, where they have been operating as an unlicensed private investigator. This brings Fourth Amendment constitutional violations into question when you're doing this and you're conducting a mass surveillance and doing background checks on your residents over and over and over again. And this puts your city at risk for lawsuits because you're spending taxpayer dollars, $50,000 a year is what's planned, to hire an unlicensed private investigator, which opens you up to lawsuits. Now, across the country, these lawsuits have been filing and they're making their way through the courts. Generally, what we see is that cities lose and pay out. And then Flock picks up and leaves and goes to a different city. You want to be extra careful about using such a powerful surveillance tool without knowing the full ramifications of what you're allowing to happen in your city. And as it stands right now, it's almost out of your control because they can go to a homeowners association, contract with them, provide it to your police department, leaving you on the hook legally for lawsuits for any misuses, any false hits. Anytime the camera system at Sunset reads an X as a Y on the license plate and says, oh, this car is stolen, pull them over at gunpoint, and families are getting yanked out and injuries are happening and all kinds of bad things are happening when good police officers are given bad information by unlicensed people. So I want you to be extra cautious and know that this is not just filming in public where you have no right to privacy. This is doing a background check on every vehicle that passes by the camera through inlets, through the Department of Motor Vehicles in every state. You will then be allowing all federal agencies, while your police agency will be limited in access to the data after 30 days, Flock's contracts state clearly that all data is owned by them and that they can do what they want with it. Now, they say they don't sell that data, and that is mostly true. But they do share it freely with these real-time crime centers, with the Department of Homeland Security, with Wright Air Force Base. All of these people have access to your residents driving. So be extra cautious about what you do. I've given you the dark side of this. All of you have probably received the letter that I sent your mayor, which details many of the problems that have arisen through this very powerful surveillance tool. Yeah, and I just want you as elected officials to know that you're the front line to protect your residents and their constitutional protections and their security and safety from all of these federal agencies and outside organizations. When you choose to make those votes, you now have a clear conscience of what you're deciding on what you can do, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Just to clarify one thing, the outline that you gave me, I have not shared it with the council, but I will after this meeting so that they'll have it. So, because we're not making decisions tonight anyway, this is a workshop. Okay?
Yeah, that's. I just wanted to give you the risks that you're putting your city in front of when you turn over this powerful tool. The one that I really want you to be extra careful of is allowing the FBI to say some certification or policy trumps Kansas state law. That is not the case. Kansas state law says that if you are conducting surveillance in public, you are required to have a private investigator's license. If you are going to submit evidence to court, you must be a licensed private investigator or a sworn peace officer. And on top of that, unfortunately, the law also states that if you have been caught performing private investigation without a license, you are exempt from obtaining a private license, a private investigation license. So be extra cautious about any contracts that you enter into. Know full well what you are doing. You are subjecting your residents to hundreds of background checks through NLETs and their motor vehicle records hundreds of times per month. We see in cities and states across the country, on average, some 400 to 600 times that you will have your license plate ran through NLETs.
Okay, well, thank you for that information. Just to give everybody a chance to ask Mr. Dow any questions you may have of him.
Yeah, I have a question. Several of the things that you just mentioned, Mr. Dow, are directly contrary to what we heard from Ms. Ho.
I have the receipts for all of it, brother. I can pop those over to you in email through the mayor right away.
So what's true? I care what the truth is.
I think that your job as a lawmaker is to kind of figure out the truth with the evidence that it has been presented to you. I make no money on ALPR. I have no interest in it. Everybody else that has presented today that gives you is out to get your taxpayers' money.
So I guess my question is directed at Ms. Ho. Do we have full control over who uses our data?
100%. You choose exactly who you choose to share the data with. If you choose to share with nobody, you share with absolutely nobody. You are in full control.
Those we share data with, can they then reshare it?
There is no daisy chain, so if you share with Wichita, it stops right there with Wichita.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Buckner.
Mr. Dow, do you have the numbers on how many crimes in say Sedgwick, since you're a local guy, right, you're local, Wichita?
No, sir. I'm actually based out of Arizona.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, okay. Do you have the numbers on how many cases have been solved in Sedgwick County using flock versus abuses?
I do not.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else with questions? Mr. Dow.
Ms. Mayor, I had a question for Maria that was kind of related to that, and I visited with her this afternoon a little bit. One of the things I've been thinking about is we're in the middle of this Woodlawn litigation. I think we're at $500,000 in attorney fees so far and counting. My risk tolerance for any sort of issues is about as low as it can go. So I wanted to just have Maria share with the council what you said to me about what you feel like your experience in Wichita and just here in Bel Aire, what we would maybe be exposing ourselves to, both in terms of core requests for you. I know the legislature passed something this session that maybe limited what could be core requested, but there are still things that could become burdensome on you perhaps. And then also talking about shaping that contract and making sure it covered us. if we went with a flock system.
Well, I think that there is a common thread. Thank you. I think there's a common thread being shared by everyone who's spoken this evening, and that is that, of course, this ALPR, the automated license plate reader technology, is significant, but many municipalities are trying to adopt policies that provide some type of public transparency, but then also some type of oversight, which is what the chief spoke to earlier as well. The city of Wichita has entered into an agreement with Flock, and they were very clear regarding their LPR policy, their license plate reader policy. In fact, it's policy 804. It's a 5-page document that goes into detail about the procedures of how commissioned officers are trained in the use of the LPR technology, that only commissioned officers may use the LPR. And if they are going to use the LPR, that with their training, they are only going to use it for specific reasons. When I was reviewing a few cases, because I was asked questions regarding tonight's subject matter, when I was looking at a few cases, some of the courts discussed that although they would agree with Chief that it is not a violation of constitutional rights, that the courts look at the cities as to how that data is going to be used. Is there some type of oversight? Is there some type of policy? Is there an effort to be transparent but also protect the interests and privacy interests of the individuals? So I think Chief he spoke to some of that, and of course even the two speakers did as well. I did do a little bit of a search regarding the Texas situation. It appears as though Flock, according to the website, has had an issue with licensing down there when they were practicing, but that's being worked on. In regards to the other issue of contracts, I don't have a specific contract. I don't think there is a specific contract being proposed tonight, but it's a typical contract that was provided. And this contract that I've reviewed, provided by the PD, and I'm not saying it's for the council's consideration tonight, I just looked at some of the provisions, and there are provisions in here regarding data. There's provisions regarding Flock saying that they are not going to sell that data, that the client, the customer, which would be your law enforcement agency, that they are going to use that data, how they're going to use that data, who they're going to share that with, and how they're going to share that. That's going to, of course, be considered in their LPR policy and how they're going to handle that. But there is also language in the contract regarding limitation of liability, and I think that's what's being discussed as well. Some cities are being very careful about that limitation of liability, especially if there is a misidentification, if there is a misuse. Again, that doesn't come down to the technology, but it's going to come down how strict that oversight is and how much the training audits, how those are going to be used. As far as record retention, that was also discussed with Wichita as well. They discuss about when they're going to use this data and if they're going to use it for a criminal case. And if they're going to use it for a criminal case, then yes, this data absolutely can become an official city record. There are other cities I looked at, Overland Park, Olathe. There have been conversations about if we are going to use it for a case, then of course it can become an official city record. So that's discussed. As far as the Kansas Open Records Act, there's always a balance between should it be a public record or should it be protecting privacy interests, and it's how you use it, how it's being maintained, where it's being stored, and what's the use of that. Again, I think this is all information that could be considered in a policy. There was another question posed to me about this, about any restrictions the contract could include. Of course, there could be a clause regarding who owns this data, data retention, how it's going to be retained, and any restrictions upon the use regarding immigration enforcement, any prohibition on sharing that data with third parties, and if there would be for the policy use, if there's going to be any disciplinary actions for misuse, training, and accountability.
Are you done, Maria? Thank you very much. Much to Councilmember McIntosh's point, I think I used the term, it's a big game of telephone in many ways. And then I'm hearing two different things, is how I took it. Ms. Ho is saying there is no daisy chain, but if I heard Chief correctly, it could be because you give each other access to each of your systems, is that correct?
That's correct, but I would have to grant that on the department level. Like Ms. Ho said, I can't give it to you and then you give it to the mayor. If he asks for it, I give it to him directly, and I give it to you directly. The organization that was up there, I don't know how they did that. That'd make me tired, authorizing that many agencies.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and there are some that we had when we were looking at it that would send an invitation, and we just reject it. We don't need stuff from Bartlesville. We don't need, stuff from Georgia. And we wanted to keep it Sedgwick County. That's what we're working. That's our sphere of responsibility. So that's what we were doing. And that's on a department level decision.
So, if I'm understanding it correctly, though, like that crazy Severville one there were a number of Kansas Sheriff Office organizations there. I didn't catch if any were Sedgwick County, but you would, though, create a daisy chain if you were to, say, I don't know, Barber County for some reason. I know you don't want that, but if Severville has a deal with Barber County, then you make a deal with Barber County, Kansas, you're all connected, right? Because you can share information back and forth, even though you each made that policy decision at the department level?
Ms. Ho?
So the county over does not have the data from the Bel Aire cameras. The data and images from the Bel Aire cameras only go to who you choose to share with. They're not connected.
I understand they're not directly connected, but they could become connected if they chose to grant that access both ways. Is that correct? You as Flock, you wouldn't be sharing that information, but departments could share their information in both ways.
Yes, but the other department would not be sharing Bel Aire's data. They would be sharing their own data.
I believe to the point, if you're sharing with me and the mayor is sharing with me, I can see both of your information, but you don't get to see the mayor's information.
Okay.
So Chief, I did kind of want your thoughts on, so earlier I mentioned you're requesting, or you will be requesting potentially 5 cameras.
Yes.
Keep careful about that. We haven't approved anything. I'm struggling a little bit with the benefit of 5 cameras when there's 200 in Sedgwick County, and the risk that it sounds like we could be opening ourselves up with, and this policy we have to write. And it seems like this is a ways down the road for us to figure out, because there's 2 parts, right? There's what the technology is capable of doing, and then there is the policy that we need to make sure is firm with the contract that tells you what you're allowed to do, right?
Yeah.
And so I think those are 2 distinct things, and I think we got to get serious if we're going to have Flock or any other system that's capable of what it does, of making sure we have both of those pretty firm. And I am not satisfied with the answers I've heard tonight, that we know what the answers all are yet. And so hopefully we can get some more information and get the letter that's going to be sent that we haven't seen yet, and kind of get a chance to kind of digest that a little bit more and ask some more questions, because I think there are probably some more for me that are going to be generated after I do some more research and read up on some more. I'm just still struggling with the benefit of 5 cameras versus what it sounds like is going to be a little bit of legwork for us to do, not even bringing into the consideration some of the other risks legally if there are more challenges. So just wanted to say that, not necessarily pro or against Flock. I just think that we have some work to do, it sounds like, before we can make a really informed decision.
Mr. Proctor?
Councilmember Dean, so I guess what I'm going to point back to is our own chief said one police officer took 3 days we paid him 3 days worth of work to track down one stolen vehicle, when if we just had that camera system, could have been a whole lot faster. Mr. Dow is also known for helping people get out of traffic cam tickets in Phoenix.
I did my research on Mr. Dow.
Yeah.
It's not the only thing that's weighing on my mind. I think there's a cost-benefit analysis a little bit to it. It doesn't sound like it's going to cost much, but we still haven't heard exactly what the full proposal is and what the initial cost would be. So I need more information, but also, aside from that, I think that to me, there isn't a significant problem we're trying to solve in Bel Aire. It doesn't feel to me that we don't have a city, I haven't heard our chief say that our crime rates have doubled, or there's significant, yes, I've heard some examples of things that this system has helped solve, and it sounds like we were able to solve those, and we didn't have any of the headache of having to have the actual technology in our own community. So it's weighing on me a little bit, just trying to vet out all of the things to consider. It seems like something that we just need some more information on, and maybe when you have a proposal, maybe we'll have enough, and maybe we'll have some more of that information too to weigh. But yeah.
So back to what I was saying, we benefit from most of our neighbors paying for and utilizing this system. And so we're kind of bottom feeders at this point for law enforcement. I'm not really okay with that. I actually want to empower our PD to actually be a resource to our neighbors and be a good neighbor as well. Aside from increasing our response times, increasing our effectiveness of our police force, it's a force multiplier. And as our own chief, who we have deemed credible enough to run the department, he's here tonight, talked to us about it, has been a major proponent of it. So I guess I'm a little bit perplexed at maybe the thought that he hasn't really laid much of a case out for it, but maybe that's just my prior experience speaking into it. But I think Chief was quite clear on how much he thinks it could help us. So maybe I'll leave it there.
Any other comments or questions on flock cameras?
One thing I'll just mention, as you guys are thinking and weighing the costs and benefits, and we talked a lot about crime solving. Chief, you might talk a little bit about prevention, specifically maybe with stolen cars entering the city and doing wrong. I think with the example we've used with the apartments, the car was actually stolen that came into the city, or is that, am I missing?
We've had several, lot of
So
people.
you see, if I believe you would get notified if it came through that
Yes.
camera.
If a car comes into our city that's stolen and they hit one of the cameras, we're notified. Then we move into that area and we're going to try to get that vehicle. And more, often, the people who are up here stealing in the middle of the night, during the day, Dollar General, elsewhere, they're in stolen vehicles. We find it out after the fact, but, if we had been able to see that when they come in, then we could already be looking for them before they commit the crime. And that was one of the points I was trying to make earlier, is that prevention is a part of this. It's not just after the fact hunting for the bad guys, but it's also trying to be on the front end for our citizens so they don't become victims, and we can be proactive by doing that.
I guess I'll just end my thoughts about the last time we voted on this. I was actually, it got turned down, and I was actually a dissenter of turning it down. So I see the benefit of the technology. I think it could be a very good tool. But over the last 3 years, I've seen a lot more issues that are happening with it and that are being reported. And so I think it's important for us, if we're a city that's seriously considering, moving forward with a system like this, that we do our due diligence on some of the things that have happened in those communities. While there may be 6,000 communities that have adopted it and there's only whatever amount that have had issues, we still, I think, have a duty to make sure that the contract is such that it protects us, that our policy that's in place protects not only our citizens, but also our officers. They understand what the policy is for using this tool because there's been misuse of it, abuse of that tool. So I'm not necessarily saying which way I'm going to vote. That's not what we're doing tonight. I'm pointing out the issues that I have with it and the things that we need to resolve with it for me to get more comfortable with it. I think these are all valid concerns. I know you've brought up reasons why it'd be great, and I know your assistant with Flock, that came tonight to talk about it, has also done it. And there's been a lot of citizens from both sides that have said, yes, we love it, we want it, and there's been citizens that have said the opposite.
Yep.
So I think, I'll just say again, I don't think that we have those things resolved, and I would like to see some answers to that. Maria, follow up on the contracts, so that we can have a better place to stand when we vote. It would be my thought. That's just my parting thought on it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Maria's got the contract that we can discuss. We already have a policy prepared. I want to marry that up maybe with some of Wichita's, and then that'll be in short order, I think.
So, okay,
Golf carts?
Mr. McIntosh?
Golf carts, anybody?
I guess kind of in line with what Councilmember Dean is asking for, I'm going to ask for some concrete numbers. And I know you don't have these right now, but you mentioned a lot of the crimes that are committed in Bel Aire are done with stolen vehicles. And so that's where we get the prevention part of it. So question number one, how do we know before a crime is committed that a vehicle is stolen and already have that in a hot list to look for it as it enters Bel Aire? Where does that data come from?
Well, okay, good. If it's been reported stolen, then it's entered into NCIC. That's one of the databases that's checked. So as soon as it passes that camera, it does the check in NCIC and back, and then it sends out the tone that there's a stolen car. And
Okay.
you have the software up, you can go and look at the vehicle and the tag and see which direction it's going. So say it's at 37th and Woodlawn and it passes a camera, within 10 to 15 seconds that it's in our city, or at least it's going that direction. So we'd be able to move into that area to try to intercept it.
Awesome. Okay, and that
Yeah.
happens automatically without interaction by our police department.
That all happens in the background, and then that notice gets sent out by the Flock software. And that
Okay.
happens every single day in Wichita.
Awesome.
I've seen it work. So,
Okay, and
Yeah.
then question number two, if this does come to a proposal and a vote, I'd want to know, in the past 12 months, through means, because we don't have the system, how many crimes were committed using stolen vehicles or any other method by which this system would help us solve the crime or prevent the crime?
okay,
Actual numbers
I think I can get some of
that
those.
could have been
Yeah.
prevented, to
Yeah.
give us a way to calculate an
Well,
ROI.
that's- Of course, a lot of that's speculative.
Of course it will be.
But,
But we do have some hard data, right?
But we've got hard data. Yeah, we can find out. There's only about 1,000 cases to go through.
But I think that would go a long way toward helping us calculate a true ROI for this sort of a system.
Well, and I gave you some examples with, we've never really had a drive-by before. And this last year, we've had 3. And that would have been useful in each one of those. Because we had to, it's kind of like ask Wichita to drive their car, and they said, no, you can ride in it, because they're not going to give us their car. If we had our own car, we could drive it and get there. Instead of 24 hours, we can get there in a few minutes. So drive-bys, our burglaries have gone up. I think we can get you some hard numbers.
Okay, yeah,
But understanding that a lot of that information is going to be speculative.
okay. But the number of cases won't be speculative. That'll be a real number, right?
Well, we've got a real number, like every call that probably happens at Dollar General, and we get a lot. The different things that happen around the city, it's going to take some time to do the analysis and
Okay.
gather that up. But
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Hamburg.
just a couple of last things. I know Councilmember Proctor didn't mean it this way, but there are residents on both sides of this issue, and I don't think the people that have concerns are wanting to go out and commit crime. I know you were making the comparison to Goddard, and I don't think you meant it like that. But there are real concerns, and there are real examples. You don't have to put your tinfoil hat on to see real examples where there have been issues with this system, but I appreciate the benefits for sure. One thing that I thought of, we're kind of a little fish in a big pond next to Wichita. If we got this system, and then my understanding is your plan would be that we would each share, your plan would be to share with Wichita and they would share with us more freely than they do now. Now you have to go to them directly, is that correct?
we have to go to them directly, yeah.
But if
There's no sharing.
If we got the flock system, would you, if you had like a sharing agreement, you would not have to get their permission to check their system at that point? Is that how it works?
It would go back and forth. You can check mine, I can check yours.
Without your permission? I don't have to.
Well, you've granted that permission.
I mean, if I have a case number, I don't have to go to them and say, put this in for me. I could do it directly.
I can do it directly.
Okay.
And such a benefit that would be.
Is there any risk of Wichita? I mean, they've got like I said, almost 200 cameras now. Even with 5 cameras, because we are so close to Wichita and they have a lot of crime and a big population, that you could become more overwhelmed with cases that leave their area and come into ours. But if I'm hearing you correctly, they can do their own legwork if you have that sharing agreement. Is that correct?
I'm not sure.
So if Wichita has an issue and they know that the car that left came to Bel Aire, you will not be overwhelmed with Wichita cases coming to you because they can check in, or will that increase your workload?
Well, I can anticipate some increase in workload, but I think we could handle it. I don't think it's going to be that massive.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I don't think it's going to be that great. We're going to get some hits, and they're going to be people who live in our community. That Property Crimes Task Force, we've got 20-some people up here that they've arrested that are suspects who live up here, and some of those people have been in stolen cars. They're stealing property. They're moving through our city, and if they're on a hot list because they're in that particular vehicle and they've used it 5 times for a larceny, it doesn't mean we have to go stop that vehicle, but we can be aware that they're here. And we want to prevent a theft. So we can go and try to find it and be on guard.
When you say be on guard, I think there was even a Wichita police officer talking about, like, with all the tools now, sometimes you can get data overload, just like we do with the internet at our fingertips here. Is that a risk of this, where now you know somebody's here and you'd maybe keep an eye on them or look for a traffic violation?
You're talking to somebody who started with pencil and paper. I've seen a lot of technology
Right.
change, and I've been in it for 44 years and I've adapted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think we would have a problem.
Any other questions or concerns?
Golf carts.
I think if Goddard PD's smart enough to do it, you guys could do it.
I'm going to tell Lance you said that.
Okay. I just to wrap up, and we'll move on to the golf cart discussion. I'm not a fan of this, and I was not a fan of it when we considered this last time. And my main objection is the Fourth Amendment protection of, this is continual surveillance, and it's surveillance without warrants, which the Fourth Amendment requires to be in place. So I have a 5-page write-up of what I've done in research about this, and there have been a lot of abuses. There have been cases where I think Aurora Park settled a case just this last year at $1.9 million for a misidentified license plate, and they arrested or forced some people at gunpoint to face down on the floor and handcuffed. And I'm not saying that we would do those things. I mean, I have a lot of confidence in our police chief. I think he would do everything he could to make sure that we do this properly. My concern is this is bigger than Bel Aire, and it's bigger than our police chief, and he doesn't have control over everything. He only can manage his department, which is he does a phenomenal job with. So those are my main reasons for this. There's been no Supreme Court ruling on these issues. They have ruled on other issues, and it's interesting that Bel Aire and John Roberts have both made statements that were counter to these being legal or constitutionally legal, even though they've not weighed in on a case because there's been no case before them to weigh in on. So it's interesting how some of that is developing. We have historically police generally do a good job at things. They try to be very honest and fair overall. And, I've had relatives that are police officers, so I understand that. But there have been serious matters in police work in the past. You may have heard of Miranda rights. Miranda rights is a direct result of a case out of Arizona where police were actually just doing interrogations with no legal representation of the defendant. And that's where the Supreme Court came down and said, and that was a case called Miranda versus Arizona. And then the Supreme Court came down and said, you've got to do this. This is what you have to do. So the police, law enforcement had to change their ways there. There's a situation still pending here in the state of Kansas with the Highway Patrol where they do a thing called a two-step that has been challenged as a Fourth Amendment challenge. That has not been resolved as far as I know.
It has, and they
You think it
were
has?
found to be right.
They were found to be right, because I knew that there was still, last I saw it hadn't been resolved, but
Yeah.
maybe that's more recent,
Yeah,
so.
they got an affirmative decision, I think, in the 10th Circuit.
In the 10th Circuit, okay. I
On
hadn't
review.
seen that. So, okay, so thanks for the clarification there. But we just need to be very careful that we don't venture off into areas that are problematic for the rights of people. If you've not read the book, I encourage you to read 1984 by George Orwell. It's written back in the 1940s. It was required reading for me when I was in high school. I don't know if they still require it, but it's not intended to be an instruction book, and it's intended to be a warning about what happens when you have an overbearing police state. And we see this in other countries. We don't live it in this country, and we need to protect against living it in this country. So anyway, I won't belabor that anymore. I just wanted to give you my 2 cents worth about what my thoughts were there. So if there's no more questions or discussions, we can move on to golf cart discussion. And were you going to present on that, or? Chief is. Oh,
Got
okay.
me again.
Okay. All right. It doesn't say here who, so I didn't know. Okay.
So, in your packets, you received an old staff report from 2018. And you got that because our stance really hasn't changed, and the problem, there's what we experienced back then is we had one person, two people talking to council members, so they brought it. And so have you all read that short report, I hope?
I haven't seen it.
The state statute says that unless you authorize it, it can't happen. They can't be on any streets or sidewalks. And we don't have a golf course, and you can't legally get to Willow Bend from here because you would have to go on a 45-mile-an-hour road or a 40-mile-an-hour road to do that. That's a problem. So I did a little research and expanded a little bit from my last presentation. I don't know how deep you want me to go, but in the state statute, it also says lights required for motorcycles by sections 183 and 188 of the ordinance. Well, that's all this stuff. So it's very particular on the headlights and how high they need to be, and so on. The turn, it has to have turn signals. It's not an option. Because of that, they have to have them. They have to be, have a particular type of headlight. It just can't be something that shines on the ground here. It has to go out and be able to reveal persons and vehicles at a distance of at least 300 feet ahead, which I don't think most golf carts have right now. I mean, the ones you buy off the showroom. Let's see, and those are just examples of some of the things that are required by state statute. I looked at the proposal for golf carts in Bel Aire that was prepared, and I redlined a couple of things. That's this small one here. And what I redlined was max speed of 25 miles per hour. Golf carts are only supposed to go 20 miles an hour, max. And if they go, everything I've read, and I read some owner's manuals this week, says that if they go 25, that means they've been modified. So, and then the purpose of the golf carts, thoroughfare streets with a speed limit of 35 miles an hour or higher. By statute, you don't get to do that. You can be more restrictive, but you can't be more liberal than what the statute says. And that would be more liberal than what the statute says. So the other thing that I found, and I found it really interesting, was that in every owner's manual I found for golf carts, it says not intended for street use, off-road use only, like on the green. On the golf course. Maybe you don't take golf carts on greens. Yeah, on the fairway. So by manufacture, they're not intended to be used on the street or the sidewalk, really. And so I would offer that up for consideration also. But do you have any specific question? Oh, I'll add, when I did this in 2018, I had a lot of information from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration that addressed traumatic brain injuries and injuries to people who are in crashes with golf carts. And it was very distinct that young children get traumatic brain injuries when these things fall over and land on them, when they fall out. Bad deal. And then you have the middle people who have shoulder injuries and knee injuries, hip injuries when they dump them over. And then the other traumatic brain injuries come with about 60 years old and up. It was kind of interesting to look at the time. They're not safe. And I've talked to a lot of police chiefs and officers in other cities in Sedgwick County, and they're the bane of their existence. They get passed by a council, and then the rules are set in place, 16 years of age with a driver's license, and the next thing you know, the city councilman is in his golf cart with a beer with his 13-year-old driving him down the street. That's a story I got today. And enforcement, some of them have tried to enforce, and of course, the same person who chirped in your ear to get golf carts in the first place are chirping in your ear because they got a ticket for its misuse, or their kid got a ticket for this misuse. I think they're more problem than what I want, and I stand by my 2018 position where I would really like not to see them on our streets.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to comment. I had heard, I'm totally neutral on it. I'm not getting a golf cart if this passes, but I'd heard from 4 or 5 people, and I knew your position on it because I'd heard you mention it before about the headaches and, people trying to drive to Willow Bend down Rock or something, even though that's not allowed. So I'm frankly neutral, but I thought it was worth having another conversation since it's apparently been 7 years. So I appreciate the write-up and the info.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Dean?
I also had a couple of similar comments. So for my time on council, I think it's been a little over 4 years. I've had this topic come up occasionally. I've probably had 2 people personally approach me and ask me about it. And, I've had an occasional email. It doesn't seem like there's a huge demand for it. I'm not having citizens coming to me saying, we have to have golf carts, right? And there's like droves of people lining up to talk about golf carts. And I'm also I remember talking about it. You hadn't done a formal report since I've been on council, but it's come up occasionally and we've discussed it. And I guess it feels to me like there's a lot of other things going on. Like I see mini bikes occasionally. I'll see other things that are not legal to be driven on the road or on a sidewalk, but they are, right? So you're dealing with some of these types of enforcement actions. And just thinking about, being cognizant of driver safety and pedestrian safety and bike safety, that those are all already major challenges. And from personally driving on a golf cart and having maybe misusing it on a golf course, of course, right? Not on a legal street, but having, a little bit of fun with a golf cart. I can personally attest to, you can get hurt, right? That is a real danger. And a lot of times what I see when I see somebody driving them that is in the neighborhood is it's a kid. And I really do worry about the safety aspect of it. And I feel like people feel a little bit invisible when they're driving it, right? They feel, like Iron Man or Superman when they're driving it. And you can get hurt, and they are not designed to protect you from hitting anything, whether it's a car hitting you, whether it's another person, you hitting a tree. There's just no protection. And so just in the eye of safety for our citizens and for the driving public that, may accidentally run into one of these things and kill somebody because there is zero protection in a golf cart. And just the headache it seems like it would create to actually do it right? So if we were going to do it and we put in regulations and we tagged them and regulated them and enforced it.
Who would do that?
It feels like a whole lot of work. I'm not suggesting that, but if you're going to do it, it feel like you may, I've seen examples of other cities and how they've went through that process. It feels like to me, it's a whole lot of taxpayer dollars, a whole lot of wasted time to enforce something for maybe a half dozen people. And we do not have a golf course. So I don't see the advantage of it. My position on it hasn't changed. I think that it would add undue amount of enforcement action for our PD, when I would rather our PD be focused on the stuff that they do, and they do a really good job. I'm not saying they wouldn't do a good job if this did pass
We need to be
at some
tracking
point.
down flock hits.
Well,
Yeah.
with or without flock, you guys do a wonderful job, and I
Thank
don't
you.
think I'd like to add this to your list of things, to worry about for a few citizens that have brought it up occasionally. And another thing I'd like to know from you, just how often do you write a ticket for not just golf carts, but motorized vehicles that are not supposed to be driven on our roads or our sidewalks?
And
Do you write tickets on that, or is it just an
I
education?
have. The repeat offenders. Usually we stop them and let them know that they're not supposed to do it. But you've got a little bit of a problem with the changes in technology over the last 10 years. Electric bicycles. What do they call it? Razors, the electric razors.
Scooters, yep.
Two-wheeled. The mono wheeled
Right.
things, they're not covered in state statute at all. Maybe
Right.
that's for next year, because it only talks about skateboards. Because when the statute was written, it was just a skateboard. No motor, no.
Right. But you're seeing a lot of those things being driven mostly on sidewalks, probably.
There are
not
a lot
in the-
of them,
Not
yeah.
in the street,
Yeah.
usually, but.
And, do you want to, be a hard case with a 10-year-old? I don't.
Right.
But if they're in the street, they have to get out of the street. Yeah. That's an officer discretion
Right.
thing. We've had a couple of people that have just been, you've seen the motorized unicycle? We had a guy here, and he had one, and he was doing like 40 miles an hour. But he had elbow pads and knee pads and helmet, and he didn't see why we would be irritated with that. But convinced him not to do it. And if the legislature said he could, we would approach that then. But he complied eventually.
Well, just figured I'd share my thoughts on it.
Yeah, this is an issue that keeps popping up every once in a while, and but not only this, as you alluded to, Mr. Dean, the other type of vehicles. I know that other cities have written ordinances to address all those. I don't know if we'll ever come to that point that we need to write ordinances to address all those, but it may be something we need to think about at some point. So I don't know what your thoughts on that.
Never received a complaint because a kid's on the electric razor going down the sidewalk. So I use that in decision-making also. As most of you know, we like to educate before we enforce.
Mm-hmm.
So informing somebody that they're not supposed to be doing a thing is that first step. And,
Right.
And we oftentimes wait until we get a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right, I mean, clearly there's a difference between a motorized scooter and a mini bike that's
Yes.
drag stripping down a sidewalk.
Yeah.
Because I've seen both.
yes.
And one is unsafe, and one is safer,
Yeah.
right? Like riding a bike, or riding an e-bike. I mean, people ride e-bikes. Ride your e-bike in the bike lane, ride it on the street, follow the rules of the road. I can see why that's an educational opportunity, and maybe that isn't specifically in our statute, and you're not enforcing that.
Yeah.
But a
Well-
mini bike that's drag stripping down a public sidewalk or public road that's not street legal, I can see how that could be a different situation.
And I don't want to open up a can of worms, but we've got a multi-use path that goes from 45th to 37th. People are on that on their bikes all the time. We have a bike lane in part of that. But I'm hard pressed to tell them to get off that really wide sidewalk when there's nobody else there because of the traffic on Woodlawn right now. It's not safe.
Is the multi-use path, sorry, is the multi-use path not also for bicycles? I guess I was under that impression.
I think, well, like I said, it gets kind of confusing reading the state statute and our STO about motorized bikes, which have different rules than bicycles, which have different rules, yeah.
Okay.
So over time, I mean, it used to be, you had this, what was it, little 10cc motor that you could put on a bike and, you know.
Electric assist, yeah.
And no, it's in state statute. They've got to have a certain type of muffler system, and you can only go so fast, and that's archaic law.
Yeah.
And don't like using things like that.
So in your view, the multi-use path, bicycles are fine, but not motorized bicycles. Is that what you're
Well, that's
saying?
what you decide.
Okay, I don't think we've ever addressed that.
My opinion is if somebody's being respectable with what they're doing, it can be an e-bike or a regular bike. If they get over, if, you know, the family's coming by with the stroller, and they share,
Yeah.
okay. Now, on the 4-foot sidewalks, that's a different story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're building one on 53rd. I think that's going to be a multi-use path, right?
It's multi-use, yes. Yeah, it should be 10 foot.
Yeah.
If
And
we
I
get started.
imagine at some point, we're going to have kids riding their bikes to go to Isley, to go to school.
Gosh, I hope so.
Yeah. And so what do we do with that?
They ride on that bike path,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what it's for.
That's why I see it.
What if they use their motorized skateboard?
Well,
That's not supposed
do
to
we-
be on there by ordinance.
No.
Yeah.
And then maybe we need to address that. That's what I was trying to allude to, that maybe we need to look at that at some point.
Well,
I don't know
think
when.
that- I think the legislature, I know they work on some heady stuff like he's going to talk about.
Yeah, curious too.
Oftentimes, the simple little things need to be addressed at some point in time.
Yeah.
And to update some of those old archaic statutes. I know it's not on the top of their list, but maybe it'll come.
I will say, a few years ago, I was talking with the mayor of Clearwater, Bert User, and he provided me with a copy of their statutes on, and it was broad brush, it was golf carts, it was everything. It's probably obsolete now, but I do have a copy of that if people would like to, if that'd be worth sharing, but.
But the police chiefs that I've spoken with, they separately, they use the same verbiage. It's a status symbol.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a status symbol. I can own a golf cart and I want to use it.
I had one question along those lines. Do you feel like, from a developer standpoint, it would be attractive if we allowed golf carts?
I've never talked to a lot of developers. I've never had them approach me with that topic. Not saying
Except one.
if
There's
I brought
one.
it up, that's different, but I haven't been approached with that.
Okay.
And
I guess
We
there's,
were approached with
And
it with
before he
one
was
developer.
in his position, Andrew Reese, he wanted to have a golf cart so he could
Yeah.
drive people around to different lots to show them.
Oh, okay.
That's what I said, we did have it.
And, great guy, but I had to tell him I wasn't in favor of it. And he's one person out of almost now, well, at that point, probably 8,000, 9,000 people. We can't change an ordinance. We shouldn't change an ordinance for 1 or 6 people when it's an elective thing.
Yeah, my thoughts were, are there so few people that you could make a couple people happy? But I'm sure if we changed it, we'd have more golf carts.
Well,
Yeah.
you can change it and you'll make those few people happy, but like Mr. Dean said,
Sure.
you're going to have irritated people calling us up, why are these things on the street?
Sure.
And I almost hit one, and they're letting their kids ride it, and what are you going to do about it? Or the example I gave, the drunk dad is having his, just teenager drive him around.
So I just will say, you're well aware of this, of course, but there's the other side of that. There's the older person who can't drive anymore and wants to get to church, and they can take their golf cart down beside the sidewalk to church.
Well, I don't dispute that. The last guy I found from Catholic Care Center had gone to Dillon's and was on his way back,
He's taking a jaunt.
In a golf cart?
I've never seen him taking it to church, but I have seen him going to Dillon's
In a golf cart?
in a golf cart,
Did
I
he
mean,
use multi-use path, or did he use a street?
street.
I mean,
Oh,
it is a
wow.
good point. You're going to see that kind of thing, but a lot of the communities that put these in require you to be 16 and require you to have a driver's license.
Yeah.
So
not
if
a
you
farm
can't drive a
permit,
motor vehicle on the
Not-
street,
not a
you
learner's
cannot
permit.
drive a golf cart to church on a street. Like, based on a lot of the laws I've seen written anyway. I don't know what we would decide if we decided to move forward, but a lot of them do require a driver's license.
Now, the law allows for you to cross like a 40, 45 mile an hour street perpendicular, get across, but you can't drive on those higher speed streets. And actually, driving in the ditch next to the street, it's still considered roadway. Okay, even though it's the ditch, it's the roadbed in between the property line and the property line.
But they were driving ditch beside the sidewalk, so away from the street.
What is that? I think it's, it's about 50 yards.
Is your mic on?
Uh,
Is your mic on?
No, that wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, that's a very short
I'm
distance.
neutral. I'm neutral. I'm
Okay.
just saying that there's multiple sides to
Yeah.
that.
Now, the people who use them at the Catholic Care Center on their streets,
Perfectly okay.
yeah.
And they're also on private property when they go to church on the other side of the sidewalk away from the street.
Yeah,
Right.
if they're on the east side, if they're going up
Yes,
through
on
the
the east side
grass
of the
to get
sidewalk.
through the school, once they hit the school, they can
Yeah.
go around. Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of interest in having anything like that going on there.
No, my only comment is
Even though they're
that
doing it.
less is more. Less laws is better if we can
I think Barry,
not over legislate here.
Okay, so we're going to, it seems to me that we're not going to pursue this one at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I guess I'd maybe have more interest in having a bigger conversation if we actually, there was a real path for golf carts to even drive to Willow Bend, but we don't even really have that. I mean,
No,
it's just
we
not
don't
there.
have that. It's not.
So,
No, there's no way you can.
I'm
do it.
like, I think it's kind of a waste of time at this point, even though I know, one guy approached me about it, and I was like, but there's just not a path to Willow Bend.
I may have told him to contact you guys, because I don't know if it's the ninth green over by Barton Creek, and he's going through the pampas grass, hopping on Barton Creek, getting to 45th and making his shot down to Elk Creek.
Yeah, I've seen him do that.
Yeah. And I just talked to him and say, hey, you're really not supposed to do that. It's dangerous for you.
Yeah.
And please don't do it. I don't know if he still does it.
Okay. Well,
I'd agree. I think we have other things to spend our time on. Doesn't feel like there's a path there.
okay. We'll move on to the next item then, property tax legislation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate the information. So the governor vetoed the bill, or did she make a decision yet?
Don't know yet.
No, not yet.
Got 10
Okay.
days. So we'll see. So I'm going to, yeah, the second bill. Yeah, she did veto the first one. So we'll go over a quick overview of the two bills that were going through legislation here recently. First was 2745, which had morphed into 2043 with the property tax reforms. So at 2745, this one was passed on March 27th and then ultimately vetoed by the governor. It included all taxing jurisdictions in the state except the state of Kansas. It included a 3% property tax increase cap or the CPIU Midwest inflation rate, whichever is less. And I think last time I looked, it was around 2.7%, right around there. So year over year, you could not exceed that cap. If you exceeded that cap, you would then be eligible for the new protest petition process. A successful protest petition would revert you back to revenue neutral, meaning you couldn't collect $1 more than you did the previous year. There's also no exemptions for debt, new construction, economic development incentives like IRBs, TIFs, anything coming off of abatement, property that changed use or new territory added. So some of the major challenges with this bill as it was presented, and there's a lot of testimony on, was one, the protest petition, and then two, these exemptions I'll touch on here in a second. But if this were to come into fruition later on down the road, we can start thinking about.
I think that's the biggest thing is,
Yeah.
I don't think we're out of this. Next year, we're gonna see some of this come back up, I guarantee it. So
Yeah.
this is why we kind of want to have this conversation first with you guys, as we prepare in the interim of how this might affect the city of Bel Aire.
I think the background information is very helpful to know. Yep, no good. If that protest petition option is there in the future, we'll have to consider every year, do we exceed this property tax cap? We can exceed it, but then it does put us up for that protest petition process. In this bill, it was 10% of the registered voters. They altered the bill to where the revenue neutral rate notice that's sent out to every property owner in town, they could fill in a checkbox and sign their name next to each one they wanted to protest if it was eligible. And then they could just mail it back in. If they had 4 registered voters in the house, they could make 3 more copies, send all 4 copies in. So 4 votes for 1 house. So that's how they
streamline this protest petition process. So with this bill, it would take only 703 petitions for Bel Aire to override the governing body's decision on adopting a budget. And for reference, there was 2,883 votes cast in the last city council election. So roughly a fourth of what the electors voted for our last city council members. It would take to override your decision on a budget that would exceed 2.7% in additional property tax dollars. That's kind of the whole idea behind the protest petition. There were no exemptions for bonding. This is a major, major issue across the board. Basically, what this comes down to is infrastructure or operations. For example, if this bill was in place, it would have allowed us to collect about $143,000 more than we did in 2025. If we were bonding 53rd Street this year, that's going to cost us about $230,000 a year in debt service. So we would instantly have to cut about $90,000 from the budget in order to pay our debt. That's where that exemption comes in. It's very, very important because in Kansas statute, all cities have the full faith of their taxing authority. We can tax what we need to tax to pay our bills, plain and simple. And that's why our credit ratings are fairly decent in the state of Kansas for all of us municipalities. So that was one of the big ones there. For the bill that did pass here recently, that on April 10th, like I said earlier, the governor still has 10 days to review this and veto it. I think that's probably going to happen. Not 100% sure, but it's kind of looking that way. The veto on this one cannot be overridden as the legislative session is completed. That was the last day when this is passed. I think it was after midnight when it was passed. So that's why I said the 10th on there.
Yeah, it was early Saturday morning, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty late. This includes all taxing jurisdictions other than school districts in the state of Kansas. It includes a 3% or CPIU cap. That stayed the same. The protest petition process is similar. But in this case, the successful protest petition would revert us back to that cap and not revenue neutral. So regardless of what we propose as a budget, if it was protested, we could still collect that 3% or 2.7% CPIUM, whichever was less. And in this one, they added back in all the exemptions for debt, economic development incentives like IRBs, for those that come off the tax roll, new construction, property to change use, or new territory. So if we were to annex a tract of land that had several houses on it, that gets stacked on top of that cap. So we can't collect that since we're increasing our service area. So if this does remain law, one of the things we're going to have to think about again is, do we exceed the cap? Do we propose a budget that exceeds that cap? What is it? What services are those going to fund? Things like that. For this one, the protest petition changed from 10% of registered voters to 10% of the qualified electors in the last Secretary of State election in your jurisdiction. So for Bel Aire, 10% of the voters that cast votes in the last Secretary of State election in 2022 was 3,550. So that would make that protest petition 355 signatures to be sent in to cap us at that 3% or CPIUM, whichever is less. And for reference, we had over 2,800 people vote in the last city council election. So just to point out that disparity between, normally when we do have an election, that's our normal turnout, but in this case, it would take only 355 to overturn a decision of the governing body. So that's a quick overview. It's not a whole lot of information, but just kind of want to get that out there, get that explanation there, and kind of start thinking of how we want to approach this year's budget with potentially anticipating legislation similar to this next year.
Well, it has the exact opposite effect of what they allegedly want, right? We're not incentivized to cut our mill levy now, right? Because it could come back to bite us.
Correct. Correct.
That's the most challenging thing as Barry and I look at our budget and what we want to anticipate or do. I think we've done an amazing job lowering over the years, but it's something we don't have to decide tonight, of course, but Barry and I are working hard on the budget right now, and we're going to enter budget season, so it's worth mentioning the political atmosphere we're in with these budgets.
Yeah, I'd like, and you and I have talked about this, I'd like to see us continue to use the target that we used last year, use that formula to come up with our target for the budget. We did put 27 payrolls in this year's budget. We need to pull that back to 26 payrolls because that's an unusual year, but it happens, I get it.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, I think we for this year, I think that would be the best way to come up with the target, and then we can have a discussion from there, what we should do. Unless somehow the governor signs this thing, but, I've asked her to veto it, and I think others have asked her to veto it, so we'll see what she does, but anyway. And just so you know, the reason that I asked her to veto it was my main issue with this particular version is that protest petition. That disenfranchises all the voters that would have said yes.
Exactly.
They don't get a chance to say at all.
Right.
Okay? And it's really going to be cumbersome for the election office to figure out those petitions because the only valid petitions are voters. And if you have, people, there are people that own 10 properties in Bel Aire, okay? They only really get one vote if they live in Bel Aire. If they don't live in Bel Aire, they don't get any vote, right? So.
That did come up at the legislature discussions, and the property owners could make a copy of their R&R form and give it to their tenants, since their tenants are actually registered voters in the city. So they'd have to make that, send that notice on to them, make copies and all that stuff, so.
You could do that, yeah. Mr. Proctor.
Mr. Mayor, what is, I didn't follow this close enough to see how this part works, but maybe you guys know, how does this affect our tax abatements in our development districts?
The previous version, the 2745 one, did not pass at all. You just absorb them.
Yeah, I think that, my view, the 2043, those tax abatements don't affect until they come on the tax rolls. And then treat them like this brand-new development.
Yep.
Right?
You're treated as new growth.
So it's new growth. First time it's on there, it's not affected. Now, the next year, it's going to be affected.
I see, okay.
But the first year, it's not.
But, yeah, I was going to bring up what Emily was kind of alluding to was this kind of discussion at the state level actually kind of messes with our psychology at this level of, well, shoot, we better get what we can because of our credibility as a city if we want to keep our quality up.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and it's too bad that we have this kind of a situation, but, that's what we got, so.
Yeah, I personally, I followed this fairly closely, and I did watch some of your testimony too on previous bills, the one that got vetoed too. And there's two issues for it with me. There's the exemption for the school districts, which is 50%.
That's a big deal.
50% of most people's taxes bill is from a school district, and I'm not saying that school districts don't budget, don't have the same challenges, but they're exempt on the newest bill. And then the other thing is, at least this newest bill took into consideration some of those exemptions, but I truly believe, I do believe this is going to be an ongoing issue, but I think it was a lot of hyperactivity on it because it being a governor race year. I really do. And so I think they're going to probably come back to trying to find some practical solutions that actually could work rather than bluster back and forth. I really believe that from following it. It kind of seems like both sides tried to use it to take tick for tat and tried to gain political points, and nobody won at this. They just wasted a bunch of freaking time, in my opinion. But I think there is really good bones there for setting, and I think just to pat ourselves, I think we've done a good job of trying to think in this vein of new growth, studying CPI and cost growth, which I think everybody should be watching. And then trying to consider new growth and how do we support our new growth, and trying to manage our budget, which is really at the end of the day what our local electeds are supposed to be doing. And I really hate the idea of state legislators that can't manage their own freaking budget deciding that they want to take control of that. But I get why they're doing it. I get the pressure that they're getting. It just seems backwards from the people that ought to be managing their budgets better. And unfortunately, we're at this spot because instead of coming to our council meetings, we hardly ever have a full room to talk about budgets or to talk about R&R or to talk about any of the ways that they could discuss this with their locals who have the control, but they're shooting emails to legislators constantly, or they're setting AI up to send legislators emails. Whatever is happening, I think it really feels like a solution is on the forefront, and hopefully next year and the coming years we'll have a little bit more of a better solution that's more workable, because it seemed like a lot of these were
All right.
just, there was holes in them for sure. So anyway, I'm excited about our budget process, though. I think, I agree with Mayor. I think we should try to manage our process like we have in the past years. I think we've done a fair job of trying to actually control and not capture all of our growth and try to manage our budget the best we can, because we do have a lot of needs. There's a lot of things we're trying to, catch up on and also try to support growth. So thank you guys for working on the budget. Thanks for the update too.
Yeah, no problem.
So from the city administration side, it's difficult when we just went through a huge technology for us. We kind of came up to that. That was about a $350,000-$400,000 project, $350,000 project. If we were under some like strenuous caps, it'd take us maybe 5 years to save enough money to fund that technology. But what that technology's done, and I've reported it last week, is it turned 160 shutoffs into 25 shutoffs, which freed up my whole public works department. So it's difficult to isolate put all cities in the same spot. And those are what those types of stories are what I think legislators need to hear, and that's what Barry and I will try to come up with more of those stories. Another great example is when Amazon came in, we lowered our take dollar for dollar. So that's a good story of, when businesses come in, cities are responsible to try to maintain that and relieve that. So stories tell a lot, and we'll try to feed as many of those types of stories to our mayor who testifies or any legislator that comes before us.
One final thing I'll say is, like, I studied that previous bill before it got vetoed, and one of the things I'm confident in is it would absolutely kill growth.
Definitely.
Special taxes wouldn't
Yeah.
exist, IRBs wouldn't exist, nothing. Now, I'm not suggesting, maybe we do need a paradigm shift. I'm not suggesting that there might not be some good that came of that. We're kind of unique in the aspects of using some of those tools. So maybe there is someday in the near term, where things get flipped completely upside down and we have a new normal. We have to fight our way through and figure that out. That may be coming. It doesn't seem like a positive, but maybe there is down the road something that could be a better system. But for now, we've got what we got, and we know those are the tools we use to grow. So it would certainly impact those tools the way we know them.
Yeah. Mr. David, did you turn the light on for a reason? Maybe it's just a mistake.
Oh. No, I like these lights.
Yeah. We never got disciplined to use them. I mean, it was kind of a two-way thing, but anyway, that's okay. No worries. So those of you who have seen my property tax presentation, you know that the traditional way we've done property taxes especially, is we look at these assessed valuations, and we look at the aggregate. Last year, Bel Aire's was just under $130 million of assessed valuations, and we look at that growth. Well, a lot of jurisdictions take that growth and assessed valuation and say, that's how much I can grow my budget. Okay, and I don't have a tax increase because my mill levy stays flat, okay? Well, it's disingenuous, because you did increase your budget, you did increase taxes just because of the growth. So the paradigm shift is quit doing that, okay? The paradigm shift is look at your budgets, look at what you really need, look at the growth of your city by population or whatever growth tool you want to use. Don't use all of them, but use a growth tool and see, okay, what's really needed in the city? And don't be doing this game with assessed values, because that growth in assessed values doesn't mean you have more needs. It might, but it doesn't necessarily. The real needs are serving people. And if you have a growth of population, then you may need more budget to do that.
It's a lazy, passive decision to just.
It is, but everybody in the state thinks that way.
Okay.
And that's one of the paradigm shifts I think we need to do as a state, so.
Right.
Okay, all right, I'll get off that soapbox. Any other things we need to talk about tonight? It's been a late night. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with this long discussion. I figured it was going to be long, but anyway, I think we learned a lot, and I appreciate your time and effort, and we'll see everybody next Tuesday. Have a good night.
Thank you. We paid for that shorter fruit shop, didn't we?